Hey, what is going on, everybody? You already know it is Thursday night at 6 p.m. My name is Paul Spencer. That man right next to me is Dan Connor. It's the NFL Weekly Football Talk. Dan, what's going on, brother?
What's going on? We're a week away from the draft here, talking about our division tonight.
Man.
And next week's everyone division talented players. So it's an exciting time. 1 week away. So
Definitely.
pretty good, though. Pretty good.
It's the last division we're talking about, Dan. We saved the best for last. Of course, our division, me being a Cowboys fan, you being a Giants fan, we do pretty much go to the NFC East a lot because that is our home area. We're East Coast guys.
Yep.
A lot of our hosts on the network here are East Coast people as well. We have a Washington show. We have a Giants show, which you run. Sully Spot on Monday nights run the Eagles show as well. So best division of football to us, Dan, arguably what we feel about it. But let's recap a little bit last year, Dan. Wow. We know in this division, Dan, first and foremost, there is no back-to-back ever division champs in this division, Dan.
Nope.
We know that, number one. The
Yep.
Cowboys won it last year, but, we'll talk about them last, my team. We'll talk about the Washington Commanders here, Dan. Let's talk about them last year. We'll go there first. How do you feel, Dan? I mean, let's talk a little bit about them first.
Their defense really struggled all season. That's one thing. I thought Howe had a solid year for them, even though it was his first year starting.
Mm-hmm.
But also, you also knew Rivera was probably on the way out the whole season.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you really knew, and I thought that their defense was a big time problem last year. They're really horrible. They were 1-7 at home, 3-6. They didn't even win a division game all season.
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple games that they played the Eagles down to overtime, Dan. I mean, they
were competitive in some games.
That's a key word, competitive there, Dan. But exactly like you said, the defense was ferocious last year. They were not in a good way. They were bad.
No, ferocious. They were bad last year.
And it told you something. Ron Rivera was on the hot seat, of course. Bieniemy was the next successor coming in, being hired from the Kansas City Chiefs. But when you get rid of like Chase Young and the guys that they got rid of, you knew something was going. Either it's like
the writing was on the wall.
Yeah, if the writing was on the wall, burn it down, start over. That's what happened, Dan. I mean, we knew that, but based on last year, Dan, Sam Howell in his third year or second year coming in there.
I don't think he was horrible.
I don't think he was horrible. I don't think he was. But how do you see them? We always give grades here, Dan. What kind of grade did you give the Washington Commanders last year, sitting where they are, Dan?
I'm going to say a D+.
A D+.
Because they didn't have a lot to work with defensively.
Mm-hmm.
Howe was good some days. It was really inconsistent as well, and they also you kind of knew when they made those trades that they were preparing for the next season. And as you see, they made a lot of changes, which we'll talk about this season. Like it's totally different. It's totally different approach now in Washington.
Yeah, definitely. We'll definitely talk about what they've done in the offseason moves, who they've reached out to, picked up, who they lost. We'll definitely
talk
about that.
One more thing, but going 4-13, you can't give them a C.
I
would give them an F because I don't think they had a ton to work with, to be honest.
No, they didn't. I mean, Dan, we use the word fire sale a lot, and honestly, it was a fire sale last year. I mean, they got rid of what? I mean, going from a defensive line that had 4 first-round picks, Dan, total across that board there.
Yep.
They got rid of 2 of them. So it told you something, just like you said, the writing was on the wall where they said, okay, you know what? It's time to either, start it over. Burn it down, start it over. Ron Rivera.
All over again. Yep.
We're using you as a scapegoat. You're going to be out of here. Sam Howell, we love what you did. Thank you very much, but see you later, too.
Wish him the best. Being where they are on the draft, where the position they're in, it makes sense for them.
Exactly.
You have a brand new regime there, brand new staff there, so it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be a lot of turnover, from that team. But that's not a bad thing. It's something that needed to happen for them.
No, I mean, exactly like you said, we're talking about the new regime coming in, new head coaching coming in. We're very familiar with the new coach coming in, but myself and you, of course, we know about him. So, but there's Joe Sullivan checking in there. Speaking of the Eagles Foundation, here, Joe checks in every third and when Monday night, Sully Squad checked them out for votes. He covers the Eagles. He's like, yo, fellas, did anybody wake up Jerry Jones yet?
What's to wake up? They don't have any cap space, so there's nothing they can do.
That's son of a bitch.
Take a long ass nap all the way till the season starts.
Exactly. Thank you, Dan. You put it very lightly for me. Exactly what I was going to say in a harsher way. That son of a bitch can sleep all the way through the draft because right now he has no money to even pay the draftees that he selects in the draft. Dan, he has nobody. No money.
But we'll talk about your team last. But they don't have the worst roster ever. But you weren't able to do what you really wanted to do without that cap space. So.
But Dan, there's a difference between having a good roster and winning in the playoffs. You know what I mean? I mean, top to bottom, we do have a solidified roster, Dan, but what do with it?
Who knows? They may still not win the postseason. Who knows?
I won't get into my predictions, Dan.
Everything possible to win in the postseason and be successful. I don't know what else they could have really done. You know, they've been a really good team the past couple of years in the regular season.
Oh, thank you, Dan.
We'll
Regular
talk
season.
about
Thank you. Regular season, yes. Eileen checking in. She's like,
I
"Hi
had to
guys."
say it.
How you doing, Eileen? Joe says, "If I'm a Washington fan, I'm very excited. Young QB, tons of money. Exactly. I mean,
Exactly.
they have the money, they have the cap space, a new regime coming in. You know, and the best thing is, Dave, like I said, we'll talk about him, but their new head coach, Dan Quinn, I would just mention his name really quick, but he has like a 3 to 5 year window, Dan. Everybody's progressing him to win this year. He has that window to build his team, which we'll talk about in a little bit, Dan. Of course. Ken Fry checks in. You guys can check out Ken. He did an awesome show this morning at 10 a.m. He did the Silver and Black, the LA Kings. Also, he's going to be doing tomorrow the Las Vegas Raiders out there, and you can check him out on Wednesday. Of course, doing the Back Cave. So check out Kenny Fry out there. He says, "Hello, fellas. What's going on, Cat?" All right, Dan. So you know what? You said it all. I couldn't even disagree with you anything about the Commanders here. I got to go solid. I'm going to go solid C. I don't think anybody can get
I think that's fair.
An F. I mean, the words that
Close
you
to
use, the words that you use were writing was on the wall, Dan. It was a fire sale. Get rid of these people, you know. And Dan, I always don't like to say this, but maybe it wasn't the exact word to use was go ahead and tank the season, get the 3rd pick overall or 2nd pick overall. But you never know. It looked like that. It looked like that.
Another telltale sign, different ownership.
Very true. Snyder fan
That's what kind of pushed this. Yeah. If they didn't change owners, I don't know if it would have been this way. I think that was the start.
That's a great
change
point.
Owners, and then the owner had, all right, I want a new outlook. I want to start all over again. So we're going to jettison all these people, bring these other people in, then we're going to, we have a really good pick in the draft. We could solve one of the most key positions. So we'll see what they do.
That's a great point. Going from Dan Snyder, who was just, a big old school guy that didn't care about anything. To me, he just wanted to sell tickets.
The stadium's horrible.
Exactly.
Like they need to build a brand new stadium. There's a lot that needs to happen, but it's a good start for them. It's very positive. And like Joe Sullivan said, I would be excited if I was a Washington fan for once.
Yeah, you bring in the Harris Foundation. They're already talking about building a brand new stadium, state-of-the-art stadium here.
They have to.
Sky's the limit for them right now. I mean, they have the money, the space, the new ownership.
And build it in a better location.
Yeah, exactly.
I know Steve talks about that. That location's not the best.
I know. Oh man,
what I've heard.
God, I tell you, that's a bad stadium. So you got a what, D minus or D? You said I got a little C there. Probably go C minus, honestly, with that grade there, Dan. But we'll go to another team here, Dan. Let's talk about your team here. The New York Football Giants, Dan.
Yep. It started as a disaster from the first snap. like the very first snap, it was a disaster from the start. It's probably one of the worst starts I've ever seen my team have personally.
Mm-hmm.
And you knew it was going to be a long season. The way the offensive line was, I think there were definitely some players that stepped it up, that played well. Some of the rookies played well. Okereke had a great year for us. But I don't know. It was just a disaster of a season that I'm glad is over, to be honest. But I like what they've done so far in the offseason. And we'll see what happens. Barkley, we'll talk about it, but a lot of changeover also in New York, especially on the offense, for one of the most key players that we lost. That's on the Eagles now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I gotta give my team like a D plus.
What?
I'm gonna give them a C.
Wow. Dan, are you being a little bit harsh there, brother? I mean, a D?
All right, I'll give them a C minus.
That's at least they're a little bit they're above the grade there, Dan. A D and a C, man. My mom would kick my ass.
But their offensive line was so bad. But they had a lot of injuries also. You had Andrew Thomas out a bunch. You had a lot of shuffle. You had JMS was out. We had to sign Pugh. You had Pugh playing tackle for a time. You had Phillips playing tackle. You had Pear playing tackle. We must have like 5 or 6 different tackles this year.
Yeah, so, we always talk about like next man up, Dan. But in your case, it was like whoever can actually just fill the position to play. You know what I mean? Like it was like a turnstile in the offensive line.
Yeah, that's what it was. I thought Kayvon Thibodeau had an excellent season. I thought Okereke had a great year. I thought Banks had a good year. Dexter Lawrence had an excellent year. I'd say the defense probably did better performance than the offense did. had 3 different quarterbacks. It was just a total disaster. So, but I kind of
Yeah.
expected them maybe to have a setback because they made the playoffs and they won a playoff game, and no one expected that with a very minimal offense.
At least some teams are winning playoff games.
So, yeah, it's unbelievable that they've won more playoff games than the Cowboys,
Tell me
in a
about it.
long time, and the Giants have sucked.
Tell me
But
about
you
it.
knew there was going to be a setback, but I didn't expect them to be as bad as they were, especially on the
Agreed.
offensive side.
Agreed.
So
We got a comment real quick. Real Benjamin checks in. I'm a Washington fan. Hey, thanks for checking out. I appreciate that. Hey,
thanks for
let
checking in.
us know what you guys. I mean, we're going to be talking about the draft coming up here,
Yep.
Benjamin, in about 10 minutes here for all teams. Of course, Washington's on the clock. It's sitting at 2. So definitely let us know what you feel you guys are taking, who you're taking, and also what happened last year. I mean, sitting where you guys sat. What was the issue? We said it was the writing was on the wall, basically. So let us know how you feel. We appreciate that. Thanks for checking in. Joe says, how you feeling about Belichick next season? I don't think he gets a job at all, honestly, Dan. We'll talk about that a little bit later, too.
I thought it was going to be like an advisor or something.
That's what I'm thinking, yeah.
I thought.
Eileen checks in, says, boo, Barkley. How do you feel about that, Dan?
Out of all the teams you could have went, I get it's a business, but out of all the freaking teams you would have went through, you just had to go with the Eagles. He just had to be an Eagle. Just had to be. And now he's gonna like score a bunch of. Now he's probably gonna have a great season. I hate that he's gonna be an Eagle. It just sucks.
It is.
But
I mean,
I said, it's a business. I get it, but he could fall off the end of the earth. I don't care about Barkley no more. I loved him as a Giant, but you're an Eagle now. Nope. Later. See ya.
Oh boy.
I hope Dexter Lawrence tackles the shit out of him up the middle. But I respect Barkley. I think he's a good player. He deserved to have a good offensive line. And hey, whatever, but I don't like it.
I agree.
So,
I mean,
there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, I think the Giants' downfall last year was 2 things. Of course, injuries too, but like you said, how many starting quarterbacks did you guys have last year, man? There was no continuity on that team.
3 starting quarterbacks, and DJ. No one has faith in DJ, and I get it. Their offensive line's been horrible, and for a player like Barkley, I get it. I totally understand, and I don't fault Shane for not signing him.
I agree with that.
You have other needs and other things you need to address. And you're not sure about your quarterback position at all. Your offensive line needs to be fixed. So there's a lot of other issues that are more important before worrying about, keeping Saquon Barkley. And we weren't winning anyway, just like with Beckham. So it is what it is,
Gotcha.
Nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, I'm going to go C too. I don't like giving D's or F's unless you're, flat out, a bad really team that's like, Detroit back in the day going that way. So I'll give them a C minus here. I'm going to go a little bit under. They did have the talent, Dan, but the injuries, I give them a plus for the injury fact because injuries you can't account for, Dan, and we know that it happens.
Absolutely not. They lost Andrew Thomas. You lose Andrew Thomas to the Giants, you're in trouble.
Exactly.
You lose Barkley and Thomas and JMS, even though he's a rookie, you're in trouble. Yeah. Like without Barkley, without Thomas, they are not a good offense at all.
Yeah, when you lose your left tackle or right tackle, especially your blind side off the edge there, and you got a good defensive end on the other side, they can just feast. We know that. We talked about it all fair, Dan, in our group chat as well.
85 sacks. They one of the worst offensive lines ever.
It's crazy.
In the NFL, ever. You ain't winning like that. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
New season. So we'll see.
We'll see. We both give them a C there. So we'll move on to the second place team, the team that we can't stand. We actually agree on this one, Dan. We're okay with the Commanders. You're okay with the Cowboys somewhat. I'm okay with the Giants.
I want to know what Joe Sullivan gives the Eagles grade. I want to know what his grade
Joe, let us say, if you're an Eagles fan out there, listen, we have 32 live viewers right now.
And
Please let us know your teams.
I'm just curious.
Exactly. Let us know out there what you think of. Let's talk about the Eagles, Dan. I'm just going to say one complete sentence. I never read this book, but I think it's a tale of 2 seasons, Dan.
Yeah.
You start out so good, undefeated, and then all of a sudden, Dan, it was just like
they struggled.
It was bad in the second half, Dan. Talk about the biggest collapse I've ever seen in my life, Dan. Biggest collapse, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, they started out really well, but their offense wasn't very good. Ending the season, they lost to us like the last week, even though it didn't mean anything really.
Right.
But the Eagles just, for some reason, they just really struggled in the second half. And I would say, I would say a collapse, but that's what Joe and well, last season, you figured that season you had how good they were, how far they went, how dominant they were.
Yeah.
You thought something similar would be like that. And when you go 10-1,
Yeah.
and then you sputter into the playoffs, and you get eliminated. That's not what you're looking for if you're the Eagles.
Yeah, just like
So
Joe says, epic collapse.
I think people figured them out a little bit, if that makes any sense.
You know what, Dan? That's a great point, though.
They can't stop that one play.
Yeah, the
Push
push. It's only going to get greater this year, Dan. Don't talk about that one, okay? Please don't talk about that one.
but that's what they're going to be doing. It's going to be Hurts going to be vulturing touchdowns from Barkley. If you got Barkley, run with Barkley. Don't run with Hurts.
Oh, you got Barkley pushing Hurts. It's not going to matter, Dan.
Exactly. Like I was watching a thing where they were practicing it, but they really fell off for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I think Sirianni's done a good job, but I think he's a little, what's the word I'm looking for?
JV-ish.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say it's a coaching thing, but for whatever reason, they like really struggled. And I was surprised they struggled as much going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. Just like Joe says, epic collapse. You can't go 10-1 and fall off a cliff. I mean, that's this 10-1. You lose to the Jets. I understand you're going to lose to a team that you're not really going to be anybody.
Jets have no offense, but they have a really good defense.
Right. And they played.
But remember, I remember in that Jets game, the Eagles, Hurts forced some stuff. Like they were up in that game and they were like throwing the ball. Remember, they were throwing the ball. He threw a pick. You know, they had a couple of really bad. He had a couple of really bad decisions that game. That's why I lost that game.
Agree. Well, Dan, let me ask you this real quick. You know, we all watch our division. Of course, we watch a lot of football and outside
and their
division
defense
as well.
Was not as good either because they lost a bunch of people.
True, they were banged up on defense as well. I mean, they still have the solidified linebacker position, and our offense likes to get to the second level. Yours try to get to the second level.
Yeah,
go into that too. But let me ask you this: you used the word figuring out a little bit. You know, that's why, Dan, we talked off air. I'm a JV coach now. I change up my offense week to week. You know, play calling, name calling. You know, so this way nobody can pick up on that. But pros are a little bit different. There's so much technology here. But the word you used was, you know. But what I want to say is this: Jalen Hurts. Can we look at his injury a little bit? How he's maybe regressed, not running the ball? Because to me, what it seems like he runs the ball a lot better. It's the Eagles' offense is more productive. When he stands in the pocket, not looking to run, it looks a little bit more of a vanilla type quarterback who doesn't have the most accurate arm in the world. I want to say, Dan, how do you feel about that? Because I see it both sides.
I don't know. I think that he was a little more timid, but I know that a lot of Eagles fans didn't like how much he ran at times the season prior.
Oh, I agree with that.
Because there were times like he was the entire rushing offense.
I agree with that. Yes.
You know, and you know, I don't know. It's, you know, some of it has to do with injuries. Sometimes you can be more timid, but like I said, their offense just really struggled. It seemed like Hurts was forcing stuff maybe a little bit more. You know, Brown didn't have AJ Brown didn't have a good year as last year. It's like they just couldn't figure it out going into the playoffs at all, for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, you have a loaded team every year, but the one thing I can say about Jalen Hurts, you know, he has a short-term memory, Dan. You know, if you talk about, you know, if you have a Dak Prescott or a DJ Daniel Jones that plays in Philly, I think they would boot him out and he would try to commit suicide. Because the Philly fans are totally on your back 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Good in person
brutal. Just like the New York.
Yeah. And I think I give him credit because he didn't let him build to it. He played through the injuries. The injuries did get him down this year, you know, last year a little bit. But the collapse, Dan, I mean, just like Joe said, 10-1, and you limp into the playoffs. You know, you go from lockdown number 1 seed after 12 weeks in the NFL season, and then you go to a wild card spot, Dan. We were 3 games back from them, Dan, going 5 games, you know, before the season's over.
It's unbelievable the Cowboys actually won the division, because at that point you thought, oh, they're 3 games back. All right, the Eagles should wrap this up.
Yeah, I'm thinking like, okay, wild card. Yeah, I'm thinking wild card for the Cowboys. No problem. We'll get a wild card here. We're definitely going to get in, you know, wild card. We're probably going to go to, you know, most likely we're going to play Tampa Bay, which is a good matchup for us. But then they get Tampa Bay, then they lose. And that just shows you something where Tampa Bay is not arguably one of the top 5 teams in the NFL to me. And
but Tampa Bay actually played really well going into the playoffs.
They did.
And, you know, that I think that was a little bit of the difference also.
Sure.
They were just playing better football than the Eagles overall on both sides of the ball. You know, and the Eagles stumbled into the playoffs. You never want to do that.
Yeah, and you know what the thing is, Dan? I mean, I think they lost a lot of the locker room momentum too. When you go 10-1 and you collapse like you did, you bounce into the playoffs in a wild card here, limping in. there's got to be a lot of talk in that locker room, Dan. Like, oh shit, we were consensus #1 seed in the NFL. We're wild card here. We're going to Tampa Bay. We can't not lose to Tampa Bay. I think there was a lot of negative talk in between players, most likely, Dan. Maybe against the coaches to the players, vice versa. So what grade do you give the Eagles, Dan?
B minus.
B minus. Okay. I'm gonna go
because they weren't a bad football team. They just had a really rough finish to the season.
Agree.
I don't know if I'm not going to give them a C because they're much better than the Giants and the Commanders.
Yeah.
I would say a B minus.
Yeah, I'm gonna go B minus as well. I mean, they're stacked on a roster.
They struggled.
Yeah, and once again, injuries too. Downplayed. Hurts missed a couple games. The offensive line was kind of banged up throughout the season. Not all season, and the defense really. God, it was just like a revolving door.
Well, they didn't have C.J. Gardner-Johnson played huge for them the previous year. He was somewhere else.
Exactly.
The back end of their defense, their linebackers really struggled this past season.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm gonna go B minus as well here. So we kind of agree on that. Now let's go to the winners of the division last year. The participation trophy of the league, the Dallas Cowboys here. Getting the seed here, getting a home game in the playoffs, Dan. I guess I'll start with them, Dan. Just like you said, regular season. 53-man roster, top to bottom, an elite roster. You win in the regular season, Dan, but the playoffs
destroyed us. My God.
Yeah, I know that, Dan. We beat a D team, Dan. I get that. I get that.
In the division. They had a real. I thought the Cowboys had a solid season, but the one thing we always say, what are they gonna do in the playoffs?
Yeah,
and that's really the story for the Cowboys. They have a good regular season. They get in the playoffs, and then they don't go as far as you think they should or they want to.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to get too much into it. What do you think is the problem here? I mean, this year probably is the first year, Dan, that I can't say Jerry Jones was the freaking problem. He didn't do anything. He just, stayed on his own, basically signed the checks, put the players out there, Dan. But it came down to Mike McCarthy and Dan Quinn. Both that offense and defense basically shit the bed in the playoffs, Dan, at home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because how many points did they give up?
40-some points, Dan.
Like, that's a total failure. If your defense played half as, just 50% better, you would have been in that game.
Well, you give up 19 points all season, Dan.
Yeah, because it was like 21 to nothing.
In the first quarter. In the first quarter. First 10 minutes.
First quarter, like they just went off on you.
Yeah.
When you get in a hole like that in the playoffs, good luck digging yourself out.
Yeah, and I heard a lot of people, especially my Cowboy friends and my Cowboys fans here in our nation saying, well, Dak played a good game. He came back to almost won the game. I was like,
maybe, but your defense played. I think the defense probably did worse.
But then if you look at those yardages, Dak Prescott had over 200 yards in almost the back half of the third quarter and the fourth quarter. The game was 27 points out of reach, Dan. It was charity points. It was charity points, Dan.
Too little, too late.
Exactly.
It's just their defense put them so far in a hole.
Yeah.
So and the offense couldn't consistently keep up. It's a failure all around, to be honest. And to get blown out like that, that is, I definitely didn't expect that to happen.
Exactly. Dan, you talked about writing on the wall. I did want to ask you one question because I have my opinion about this too, but do you think that maybe the writing was on the wall that Dan Quinn was already known that he was going to leave no matter what?
Maybe.
So I don't give a damn. Maybe I got a job
you have
regardless.
To realize Dan Quinn's been a hot commodity coaching wise.
The last 2 years.
Like before we hired Dable, we interviewed Quinn. He interviewed Ben 3 years ago. Because this is Dable's third year. Yeah. So more than a couple of years ago, Dan Quinn was interviewing that year, the year after that. He was interviewing last year, so you knew sooner or later he was going to get the opportunity. I think he took the perfect opportunity. I think, to be honest, I think he had to take that. He had to take the opportunity, especially if he wants to be a head coach.
Yeah, I agree. Last year he had the commodity of going to Carolina. He turned that job down. He was the leading candidate.
I think that's smart.
It was announced that he was going to take it, but then he turned it down. I mean, that's smart right there. When you go to a team that has. You have a team that's where you went this year. You're going to be a team. So, I mean, I do say
draft pick. They're starting over, new ownership. Yep. You get to run it your way. It's your show.
Bring it
in
your
a
window.
Coaches. Yeah, that's what coaches ask for. Give me like a 3-year window.
Exactly.
To see what I could do. See if we could fix the positions we need. See if we can become a good football team. We'll see.
Exactly. Well, Dan, I guess I'll give my grade here. To me, I got to go B minus. Even though you won the division, Dan, I got to go B minus here because.
The playoffs is such a fit. The regular season don't matter. You could be great in the regular season, but what happened in that playoff game?
especially being at home, Dan. You got a playoff game at home. You're the 2 seed. You got a home game here, and basically you lose. You really should have lost by 30, Dan. Honestly, you know what
But
I mean?
also, you have to remember they had the lost Diggs. Who they lose? Who they lost?
Oh, they lost Diggs the year before. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about I thought they lost someone last year. A linebacker. They lost somebody.
Oh, in the draft, my guy Demarion Overshawn.
No, but I'm
Starting
talking about a guy
linebacker.
that was playing. One of your starters went down last
Which
year.
one?
I thought it was last year one of your starters went down. Someone else had to step in.
Diggs went down. Deron Bland stepped in this year on the corner.
I think that, I don't know, maybe if he had Diggs, maybe it'd be different on defense because he's really good, but still.
But I think there's more
They
positions.
got dominated on the defense in all phases. So
They did. I mean, I have to go B- here. You know, I don't play for participation trophies. If you don't win it all and you win your division and you get shellacked like you did at home, Dan, I got to go B- here, even though you won a division. That's just me. But
if they went to the AFC title game, then you probably give them an A minus.
I probably would have got I probably would have got an A for it's a
didn't.
stepping stone. It's a stepping stone from last year. You lose last year in his first round, the second round there, you get to the championship game here this year.
And you didn't just lose, you got destroyed.
Exactly.
Worse.
And to a rookie quarterback, Jordan Love. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a little bit different, Dan. All right, so we talked about division last year, Dan. Let's move ahead to this year. Here's 24-25 seasons coming in here. Washington's on the clock sitting at 2, Dan. Let's talk about them first. Let's talk about their free agents, Dan. Dan, it's going to probably take me an hour and a half to talk about their free agents of what they brought in. Let's just talk about a couple. Let's talk about the head coach first, Dan Quinn. Let's talk about him.
Yep, Dan Quinn, the whole new staff. So
Cliff Kingsbury, I think, is a great hire an offensive coordinator.
I think it's a good offensive coordinator hire, and I wonder who the quarterback they're looking at is. You know, so that's probably what they're going to do first. But they have a brand new regime, brand new ownership. I think Quinn's going to do a great job. I just think that, like you said, they should be excited, and they signed a lot of free agents.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the offense side of the ball, Dan, we'll go down there. Austin Eckler, Dan, let's talk about a 2-year deal for $11 million. Talk about a cheap, solid running back.
That's a great signing, a cheap deal for a guy that could run the ball and catch out of the backfield. Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good signing for them, and it's on the cheap.
Yeah, $5.5
million a year. Well, it's
exactly.
$4.82 million plus a $3 million signing bonus. That's like that's a steal right there.
That definitely
they signed Mario as a backup, which I think is a good backup. But now $6 million, 1 year, $6 million contract worth up to $10 million.
Exactly.
The backups are getting expensive now.
They actually are. I mean, that's why I'm kind of glad that our quarterback, Cooper Rush only makes $3 million a year, which is good hometown discount, I guess, with him. But re-signing Jameis Crowder was also. They brought in one of the Eagles, Zach Adeas from St. Joe's Prep, of course, brought him in there too. Zacchaeus Brett. Mm-hmm. Now, what do we actually about Zach Ertz? The signing of Zach Ertz, is this just a depth move at tight end? What does he have left?
If he's healthy, I think he should contribute a lot. But I don't know how much he has left. I don't know if he could be what he once was, but I think it's a good signing for them. It's $5 million. It's not a lot of money. They have cap space. I think it's more depth maybe, but he could definitely step in and do something for you.
I agree.
If he stays healthy, I think he'll be all right. But you're not signing him to be like your go-to guy, obviously.
True. Now here's the thing. Now you keep Cornelius Lucas, their offensive tackle. You got him, of course. Now you brought in an offensive guard, 3 years, $16 million. Nick Aguiletti, he signed a 3-year deal, and you poach my Cowboys for our starting center, Tyler Baez. That to me, you basically re-signed one and brought in 2 starting offensive linemen because they struggled last year, Dan. And this really said to me, like, you know what? They're building this team from the ground up. They're looking at that 3-5 year window and saying, you know what? It's okay that we go, a 5-12 next year. It's okay. We're okay with that. Build this team in the right direction. Exactly. So, I mean, then, you bring in another center. You brought in 2 centers. You brought in Michael Dieter as well. Mm-hmm. So there's a little competition there. 1 depth, 1 starter. I think Baez is going to get the start, of course. But, I mean, that's just the offense side of the ball, Dan. We haven't even talked about the defense yet. I mean,
they got Dorrance Armstrong, who's a Cowboy.
Yep, Clarence Farrell, he's a solid defensive tackle as well. If the edge 2 can play there. Dante Fowler, I'm not really worried about.
Yeah, didn't Farrell go high in the draft when he was?
Yeah, he was. Wasn't he from Clemson years ago where he played? He was like one of the top two D ends or D tackles coming out of the draft.
Good depth. So Dante Fowler Jr. is a really good signing.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't. I think he's more of a depth value, Dan. Honestly, because
oh, I
he
agree
really
with that, but it's
he
still a
I
good signing.
yeah with the Cowboys when they signed him. I think he was because he played with them in Atlanta. He's a familiar face, familiar with the lingo, the language.
Yeah,
So I think that was a depth move there, and it's a very cheap deal too. Now the one guy I want to talk about, Bobby Wagner. I don't care what you say about this guy. Old guy. This dude can still play. He's a solid veteran in the
well,
middle
he's
there.
also an extremely smart middle linebacker. He's got a
Exactly. He's
high
the quarterback.
football IQ.
Hmm. Yep.
He'll have the defense in the right position. I
Hmm.
still think he has a little something left. He's an excellent linebacker. It's definitely a big
True.
upgrade for them.
Oh, 100%.
And having him as a quarterback of the defense, I think that's a great move. And Quinn was involved in that one.
Oh, of course, of
And
course. Well,
Quinn's like, we got to get this guy Wagner. He may be older, but he's experienced. Just like Antonio Pierce was older, but he was experienced for us.
mhm.
He's not as good, but Bobby Wagner's a great signing. You got him for $6 million in guaranteed.
Yeah, 1 year up to $8 million, 2 million, 6 million guaranteed. Yeah, $2 million set up.
I think it's a really good signing for them.
And it does. It's a familiar face too. Seattle, Legion of Boom. When he had him back there, so it's a familiar
That's
face with
also
them.
a
Mhm.
familiarity
Yep.
because
The
the
one
same
guy,
defense probably.
the one guy too is I think it's an upgrade. A lot of people talk about Jeremy Chin, the safety, one
Yeah,
year, $4 million. I think he's solid too because that defense, man, they gave up a lot of big plays too in the back end there.
they
You
gave
know,
up over 400 points last year. Oh, 500, I think.
exactly. So I think that was solid too. Solid signing there. I mean, the sky's the future with him.
518
What's that?
points against. 518 points against for them. They
Wow. I'm
gave
not a
up.
math. I'm not a mathematician, Dan, but that's about 30 points a game,
The
honestly,
Eagles
right?
gave up 400 something.
Hey,
Yeah, that was
man.
way more than us by like over 100 points.
Jeez.
It's
Wow.
crazy,
Wow.
right?
Yeah. What do you think the biggest signing for them was, though, Dan? I mean, to me, I think it
Um,
was.
Eckler,
I think it was too.
Eckler, the center beyond. I think we see
Biotish.
Biotish, I think is how you
Hmm.
say it.
Yeah.
Dorrance Armstrong on the defense is a really good signing.
He's a solid nose tackle.
That's probably their best defensive signing. But I'd
Mhm.
say Eckler is probably their best. Eckler and the center, Biotish are their three best signings.
Yeah, because
Everything else, I think, is depth.
being a Cowboys fan, I
And
watched Dorrance
Wagner
Armstrong.
too.
What's that?
And Wagner.
Okay, yeah. I think Dorrance Armstrong is going to be solid in that middle. He's a
Oh
huge D
yeah,
tackle. He knows the scheme. He's one of Dan Quinn's guys, basically, who basically revitalized him. Dorrance Armstrong was a name, but I think playing under Dan Quinn revitalized him. So I think it's a solid pickup. And also on offense,
excellent
man,
pickup.
Eckler is just, man, coming from what he did last year, playing with a no offensive line, no quarterback
Eckler's a
out there.
really
He's
just solid,
solid,
consistent running
solid,
back.
solid, solid.
And then the people left, Hal, Gibson,
Mhm.
Curtis Samuel, Logan Thomas.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a lot of these players are not really
Mhm.
anything. Kendall Fuller,
Yeah.
like, they just got rid of all these guys. Like, all right, and then they replaced almost all these guys.
Exactly. I mean, you look at the roster, you think about, of course, we're going to talk about the quarterback need here, but you look at it's an upgrade. Austin Eckler with Brian Robinson Jr. as your 1-2 punch there. That's insane there. And then you go to the wide
Exactly.
receivers, McLaurin, Dotson, and then you have Jamison Crowder. Then you bring in Zacchaeus. That's solid. I mean, that's a fourth guy coming in with depth.
Yeah.
Go twins left, twins right.
They could take another one in the draft if they really want to.
Exactly.
Later.
And then you bring in a veteran like Zach Ertz too. And you solidify the offensive line. It's not the greatest offensive line, but it's a hell of a lot better than we had last year. Yeah.
It's an improvement. So that's what you needed.
Mm-hmm.
You got a center. You brought back where you're talking. You got another guard.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you get another offensive line in the draft.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about the draft then, Dan. What we talked about here. Of course, you brought in Marcus Mariota, but Dan, it tells me one thing: if you bring in a quarterback that can a little bit move out of the pocket, as an offensive coordinator up here at my level, at JV level, you always want a quarterback to mirror your starting quarterback. To me, there's only one guy here, Dan. It's Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, that's who I think they're going to take. To be honest,
mm-hmm.
I think I like Drake May, but I think Jaden Daniels has a little more talent than he does. Drake May, I think, is good.
Yeah.
But I think Jaden Daniels would be a great pick for them.
I think he's a solid pick because, you look at LSU, a tougher division, SEC versus ACC. Of course, we see that. Then you look at the Pac-12, even though they made it to where they would, Oregon and, of course, Washington. But you look at Jaden Daniels, didn't have the best offensive line, great wide receivers, which we'll talk about, Neighbors and Brian Thomas. But the thing is, Dan, when it broke down, the offensive line didn't help. he ran with his legs. 1,000 yards rushing, Dan, and 17 TDs on the ground last year with Jay Daniels.
That's
This dude can get out of the
ridiculous.
pocket. Yeah,
And he had a ridiculous season throwing the ball as well.
like 4,400 yards, 17 on the ground. It's insane, man.
That's crazy. It just goes to show that he's a he's a dual threat quarterback, and he runs when he has to.
Yeah.
Not like one of those quarterbacks who just take off and run all the time. He's got a hell of an arm.
And the biggest thing, Dan, is I mentioned the name Cliff Kingsbury. You look what he's done, Dan. Texas Tech. He had Patrick Mahomes, Dan. Okay.
Yep.
He had all these quarterbacks. He's been with Kyler Murray. He understands running quarterbacks. Jaden Daniels is that type of breed under the Cliff Kingsbury system, Dan. This makes perfect sense. This is a marriage made for a quarterback and offensive coordinator.
Yeah, like I said, if it's not him, it's going to be a quarterback. But I think it's going to be Jaden Daniels. I think he's going to go number 2.
I agree. I agree.
Draft. That's where I think. I think it'd be a perfect fit. To be honest.
I agree. I mean, you have Mariota's backup. You have Driscoll, of course, and Jake Fromm. As Ken, Steve calls him Jake from State Farm, your fourth quarterback. On the Washington Commanders show, Jake from State Farm there. But yeah, I think it's going to be Jaden Daniels. I think that's consensus, Dan. We agree with that pick at number 2, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think he's going to go number 2.
I think so.
And they also have 36 and 40.
Where do you think they're going to go 36, Dan? I'll give you a name here. I think they're going to go offensive line, like we said. I'm going to give you a name, Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma.
That might be a good signing.
I think he's available.
There might be a wide receiver at 36. Maybe you get another good weapon there.
And
they have receivers.
What was it, Dan? I think we talked
about maybe a guard at 40.
Exactly. I think it's going to be vice versa. I think it's going to be vice versa. Exactly what we're saying here. Offensive tackle, offensive guard here, wide receiver. Yeah, I don't know where I said this. I think it was on another show where I said, you don't be surprised. The word is we use is familiarity. I can't even say the damn word either, Dan. That word there. What if at 36 or 40, the guy that I love as a wide receiver, what if they go familiarity
Brian
here?
Thomas Jr.?
Brian Thomas Jr., Dan. Thank you.
That'd be if they took Jaden Daniels and Brian Thomas Jr., I think that'd be perfect.
And Dan, his numbers were only 200 yards off of Malik Neighbors and more touchdowns than Malik Neighbors.
Brian Thomas Jr. had a phenomenal season. He had 1,100 yards and 17 touchdowns.
He was only overshadowed by Malik Neighbors. If he did not have Malik Neighbors,
I think he might have had more touchdowns than Neighbors did.
No, he did. I think he was 6
17. Neighbors had 14.
Exactly. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Neighbors had 68 catches for over 1,100 yards and 17 touchdowns. Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah.
I was comparing both of them like a couple of days ago.
Yep.
But I think that'd be an excellent pick. You get your quarterback, get a weapon, and then you get a offensive line at 40 as well.
Yeah, I agree. That's why
receiver O-line or O-line the receiver if you think one's going to still fall to 40.
I mean, I think it's either way. I think it's going to go offensive line. If a Tyler Guyton falls there at 36, you take that best available there. Wide receivers, I think they are going to drop. If you can't get Neighbors, if he's gone
there at 36.
The other guy that I'm looking at 40, Dan, if he's available, Polk from Washington, the wide receiver.
What about Leggett?
I do like him too, but I like Polk. He was overshadowed by Roma
Xavier Worthy, but he'll be gone.
I think he's going to be gone. I told you on our first show, I think he goes to Kansas City because Kansas City, we don't know what's going on with Rashid Rice out there. We don't know what his issue is. And Kansas City loves speed.
Polk is good, though, from Washington.
I like Polk. I like Polk from Washington. I do.
And then I think Oregon has one, and I think that there's a lot of receivers in this draft, very deep draft.
There is. I think you can get a solid one at 36 or 40. To me, I'm going to go offensive line because that is what your stronger suit is, to build the offensive line.
Especially if you're taking Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, you got to help
your rookie. You're going to want to solidify the protection from him. You got to run him back. You have Eckler. You have Brian Thomas Jr. That's a good tandem back there.
Yeah, you build that offensive line. That's the quarterback's best friend is the offensive line.
Maybe they would take Bowers at 36 if he's there. But he won't be there.
He's not going to drop that far. I mean, I have him projected maybe top 15 this year, Dan. He can slide up a little bit farther, higher up too for me, Brock Bowers. But yeah.
But so, I think Washington set up really well. They did well in free agency. They have a whole new coaching staff. They're going to get their quarterback. We'll see what they do with those other picks, but I think they're going to be a much improved team.
I agree. I
don't think they'll be giving up 500 something points.
No. I mean, I think Dan Quinn's going to have the defense flying. To me, I always use the term on Cowboys, my show, saying Dan Quinn is a type DC that has 11 hats on one ball. You fly to the ball.
Yeah.
It's not just man on man. It's a team fundamental, team scheme, tackling. So I think the defense is not going to give up what they gave up last year. But, Let's move on to your team here, Dan. We got a couple comments real quick. Your co-host on the Big Blue Power Hour.
Yep.
He says, "What? Who? Big Blue? Mike Neighbors and Bo Nix." Now let's talk about your free agent signings.
I'm going to talk about. I'll talk about that, but I think the Giants did pretty solid in free agency, to be honest.
I do too.
I know some people didn't like Sutton, but you got Runyon Jr. to be your
Solid.
offensive guard. That's an upgrade. He can play left or right. He was playing right, but I think was better as a left guard the year previously.
And Dan, real quick though, where did he go to high school? Where did he play high school at, Dan?
Michigan.
But where did he play high school?
High school?
Yes.
By me, maybe.
No, he went to St. Joe's Prep.
St. Joe's Prep.
Yes,
yeah,
St. Joe's Prep. How did you get that in there, Dan?
Yeah, John Runyon. I think he's not great, but you signed him for 2 years for what, $16 million, or something like that. 17. He's getting like 8 this year. So I think Runyon Jr. is an excellent, really good signing. I think Illuminor is a good signing for the tackle position.
That's not bad. $7 million a year, Dan. 2 years, $14 million for Illuminor. That's
they're actually paying Runyon and Illuminor less this year, and they pushed it down the road for next year.
They back-ended. Okay.
So I really like those signings. I like the Devin Singletary signing. He averages like over 4 yards a carry. He's not great, but he's a solid running back, I think. Runs hard, good vision, hits the hole, doesn't dance like Barkley does. Even though I'd rather have Barkley, but I like that signing. They also signed Aaron Stinney, I think was on the Chiefs, maybe.
Yeah, offensive guard.
Who's a good depth. Austin Schultman's a good depth at center. Then the big move they made was training for Brian Burns.
Huge.
Which is a huge move. I know that he doesn't have a ton of sacks, but his potential's off the charts.
And the craziest thing is that it only costs you a 5th round pick.
Well, it's a second and a fifth.
Second and a fifth, yeah. But
it's second and 5th round picks. They gave up their number 39.
It's solid though. I mean, for a player like his aspect of what he can do, I love it. I think that's a great move.
And a 5th rounder, conditional.
Conditional, yeah.
Yeah, I think that move, that Brian Burns move, put him on the other side of Thibodeau, I think that's a great move.
Yeah, bookends.
It's a little risky, but big contract. I know it's $150 million, but his potential is, I think it's worth the risk.
Exactly.
To be honest.
I want to ask you one name here. Is this just a depth move or Drew Lock? How do you feel about that?
I like the Drew Lock signing. As a backup, I think he's
5 years. $5 million.
Better than DeVito or Tyrod Taylor, I think. You know, I think, I know he didn't play a lot last year, but he's not a bad quarterback. I don't think he's going to be our starter.
Right.
But I do like the sign. It's for $5 million, and that's your backups are expensive. But I don't mind the Drew Lock pickup. I think it's a solid pickup for a backup.
Okay.
I think I don't think it's a bad pickup. I don't think it's a bad move. Another kind of like under the radar move. I like the Isaiah Simmons. I like they brought him back.
Okay.
Because Isaiah Simmons was only here for a short time, but if he's used the right way, he could be effective. So I like that sign. I thought they did a good job. They didn't have a lot of cap space, but I thought they did a solid job. They signed Jalen Mills. I don't know what he's going to be at safety.
Yeah. Now let me ask you one thing about Devin Singletary here. Of course, he's scheduled your starter here. You have Eric Gray and Brightwell, of course. Now, do you think Devin Singletary is going to be that guy to give you 25 carries a game?
Maybe.
So?
He seems like he can handle it, but I don't know if that's what he's used to.
I mean, that's a big load, though. That's what I'm saying. Coming off his previous years, it's a big load for him right there, 25 carries.
Exactly. He's not that old of a player.
Right.
But I don't think the Giants are going to do it like that. I think they're going to pick up someone later in the draft and do it by committee. Because I don't think Gray, Brightwell, and him are enough.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to bring that up, because I mean, you're looking at, mostly teams have that 1-2 punch. Of course, we don't even have a 1 punch this year, but you look at those teams that have that 1-2 punch to expel the other running back here, and that's why I asked you about Devin Singletary.
But Singletary averages over 4 yards a carry. Like, he's always getting yards. He runs hard. He's got good vision. He's a solid running back. He's not great, but he'll run hard for us. I think he'll do well with us.
Okay. The other thing I want to ask you, too, regarding the Giants here is the signing of Miles Boykin. He's a high flyer. He's a fast guy.
I like that signing for speed, for depth. I like that signing. I like the Isaiah McKenzie signing, even though he didn't really do as well last year. He didn't do much last year as the year before.
Does he beat out Hodgins? Does he beat out Hodgins?
I don't know.
I mean, you got a nice wide receiver depth room here, and I think possibly we're going to be talking about wide receiver.
Well,
As a first pick maybe too.
it's Hyatt,
Mm-hmm.
Stone Shepherd retired,
Yep. Slayton
Hyatt,
questionable.
Slayton,
Rondell Robinson.
Rondell Robinson,
Mm-hmm.
Boykin, McKenzie,
Mm-hmm.
Hodgins.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, their wide receiver might get better with the 6th pick. So we'll see who they're going to pick here. But I thought the Giants did well. You lost Barkley, you lost McKinney, but I
Mm-hmm.
can't spend $17 million on a safety. Sorry.
Yeah, I can't do
Position
that
they're in,
either.
I'm sorry. I love McKinney. I think he's a really good safety. I think he's going to be really good for the Packers. But the situation they're in, I know people don't hate it, but I just don't think you should have spent the money on those guys. It's top money for both of them.
Okay, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Agree.
Just can't do that. It's time to move on. They weren't winning anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, Shane did what he had to do. It is what it is. You didn't get anything for them, but I don't care.
Gotcha.
It's time to move on, and we'll see how the season goes. But they also have the draft cut up. They have the 6th pick.
Yep.
So they're going to take a wide receiver. Or they're going to trade up for a quarterback. I think it's going to be a wide receiver, but we'll see what happens with that 6th pick. It's going to be very interesting.
Agree. Lucky Days checking on YouTube. Thanks for checking in, Lucky. Let us know what your favorite team, of course, is. We appreciate you checking in. Dan, before we go on to the draft here, I want to hear your departing words for Mr. Saquon Barkley, really quick, please.
I wish him all the best, but he's an Eagle now. He's dead to me.
I knew that was coming, Dan.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. Like I said, I'm gonna hate seeing him in a green Eagles jersey. It's not gonna be fun. I just hope we make it a tough day for him.
Exactly. Spectator checks in. He's like, Dan, did the Giants sign Jake Foot Jones yet?
Well, he's been signed, but he's probably going to be here one more year. But
what's he have? What's he have? 1 or 2 left, Dan?
2 years after this year.
Oh boy!
But I have a feeling it's
we had
last year.
I think so too.
He has one slim chance, but even if he plays well, I don't think he's going to be here next year.
Yep. Adam says Singletary's production has been solid. Oh, yeah, he's got 4 yards per carry. Yak yards. Of course, he's been doing good.
He doesn't have like a 1,000-yard season, but he hasn't been used like that.
He's really never had. Yeah, he's never been the feature guy. Plus, he's always shared time too. So I think it'll be a solid pick for you guys.
And I think it's familiarity. He was in Buffalo with Shane and Dable. So I think they're familiar with him. It's another reason. And same with Isaiah McKenzie. The same with Hodgins. He was on the practice squad for the Bills. So it makes sense.
I agree. I think it's familiar position there. I think it's a solid pick for them where you guys picked up there too.
But at 6, I think it's going to be a wide receiver. That's what I feel. Unless Neighbors get stolen from us or something, you know what I'm saying? Because that's the guy I want. But I think it's going to be a receiver. I don't know if they're going to take a McCarthy at 6, or they would take a quarterback later on. I don't think they're going to trade up either for a quarterback.
Evan says, Paul, check your messenger for my feelings on Barkley. Yeah, I just got banned for your message there, buddy. Thanks. So I appreciate that one there, Evan. That's how bad it was.
But what Evan said before, if they took like a Malik Neighbors at 6 and Bo Nix at 47, I don't think I'd be mad at that. But that spells the writing on the wall for Jones if that happens. Not necessarily, because I don't know if you're going to drop Bo Nix in the 2nd round and then sit him on the practice squad.
Well, I think you're going to have to. I think you're going to have to, Dan, honestly. I mean, okay, let's talk about that 6th position there. I want to give you a couple of different scenarios here, Dan. Let's talk about this. Okay, we talked about this on all year in the group chat and everything. Dan, who do you want? I think now, what if Neighbors drops Neighbors or Rome? Who do you want more?
Malik Neighbors.
Okay.
But Aduzier is really good. They're both of them are game changers. I think Neighbors is a little more physical.
Okay.
Played in the SEC. Had 2 really good seasons. He's a really, really good talent. I would be unhappy, but I think Aduzio and Neighbors could go to the Chargers.
I want to throw something at you real quick, Dan. Now, I've been doing a lot of, just.
But I want Malik Neighbors if I had to pick a wide receiver.
Okay.
Of course, I would love if Marvin Harris Jr., I'd take him in the 2nd at 6.
Okay.
If a May fell, but he won't, I would take him at 6, obviously.
Okay.
I feel what you're going to suggest, though, maybe.
So there's a lot of different, categories. If this player drops, that player drops too. Okay. Now, Dan, I want to bring this scenario to you. I've been playing around with a lot of drafts, and I came up with one last night just to, tease you a little bit about this one here. I see a team moving up to possibly number 4. That is the Minnesota Vikings.
Yep.
To take a J.J. McCarthy, to take that kind of quarterback right there, I think he was to be 1 at 4. They like how he runs. Solid defense. They have a good running game. Not a great running game, but they run the ball. What if they move up and Marvin Harrison is there, Romo Duzier is there? Are you going to go offense? Joe Alt, maybe, possibly, arguably one of the best in the last 5 years come out of offensive tackle.
Or do you go a great tackle,
or do you go Marvin Harrison? What do you do if both are sitting there at your prized possession, the picking of the litter? What do you do if Marvin Harrison drops? The Cardinals are going to drop down to, I think it's 9 or 10 right there. What do you do if Marvin Harrison's there, Dan?
I think I might have to take Marvin Harrison. But Joe Alt is,
that's what I mean.
Is a really great prospect, man. Because I know Joe Alt will be there at 6 unless the Chargers take him.
Yeah, Evan says Joe Alt rumors to New York as a sneaky pick. Drake Mayfield.
Drake Mayfield, I think you should take him.
I don't think he's going to fall, though. I don't think he will.
I don't think he's going to fall, but Joe Alt, I think, is going to be there. I think it's most likely he will be there at 6.
What if Fanshaw from Penn State drops? I mean, is he
Fanshaw, without a doubt, 100% will be there at 6.
Is that something you want to take over? I mean, if Alt's there, of course I'm going to take Alt. That's your tackle right there at the future.
I would take Alt if he was there, but like say Neighbors gets taken and say Harrison gets taken right before 4 and 5, and you have a Duzier and Alt. I might have to take Joe Alt, but you have Marvin Harrison Jr. too would be there.
Exactly.
So, like I said, if the first 3 picks go quarterback, one of the 3 receivers will be there. I think 2 of them will be there at 6. But I'm interested to see what the Cardinals do because they have no weapons either.
Very true. Very true.
But they're going to get a great offer if they would get 23 and 11 if they traded with the Vikings. So would we.
That's what I mean.
Like if they wanted to trade up for McCarthy at 6 and say you could trade down, get 11 and 23. But I don't think the Giants are going to trade down. I think they're going to trade up as a crazy thing or stay where they are and see who's there, take the best player maybe. But Joe Alt is very tempting.
That's what I mean. That's why I wanted to bring that up to you.
Very tempting.
If he drops there to you, this is a solidified future franchise tackle for you, Dan, right there.
I know.
Being a Notre Dame fan, you know how high I'm on Joe. Everybody knows about him. But just watching him, the way he run blocks, pass blocks, he's captain of the team, basically, 4-year starter, nasty. He's a fundamental guy that can play the position, knows the position, understands it. But I don't know, Dan, because if I'm sitting at 4 with the Cardinals here, I'm hoping that 1, 2, and 3, Daniels, May, and Caleb Williams goes 1, 2, 3, because the next best quarterback on the board is J.J. McCarthy. And there's a couple teams that need a quarterback. And
Penix wasn't hurt, he'd be like a top 3 pick.
He would be there too. But sitting at 4, JJ's there. I'm ready for answering my phone. I'm the Cardinals saying, "What can you give me? What are you going to give up? What farm are you going to sell to me?"
Exactly.
Best deal comes up.
Is definitely tempting. I wonder if the Chargers would do it.
Well, the Chargers have Herbert though.
No, not for quarterback. I wonder if they would trade down with Minnesota. But say J.J. McCarthy was there at 5. And they called here, we'll give you 11, 23, and more to move up. Would they do that? Still get a weapon at 11. You could still get a tackle at 23.
They could. I mean, if you're Cardinals, you're fielding the best deal possibly out there, right? You're looking to rob the.
I think the Cardinals are going to. I think the Cardinals. It's very possible going to trade that pick. Who knows?
I think they do.
If someone's somehow, some way, a receiver goes 3, which I don't think is going to happen. And it's at 4. And I wanted, say, a May was there. I might trade to 4.
Trade that 40th pick, Dan. You still have your 36th. You know what I mean?
I'll trade my 6th. And I'll move up. I'll get the quarterback that I want. You're not going to get a weapon, but like I said, I think it's going to be wide receiver or someone like Joe Alt.
Okay. I mean, I like the scenario you just said there. Let's just say if, Drake May does fall, let's say the Patriots or the Cardinals, if the keyword is if someone drops and, they take a wide receiver and an O tackle, 1, 2, and 3 position somewhere in there, and you guys have that 4th position, I'm going to call the Cardinals and I'm going to put this out there and say, hey, look, let's flip that 3rd and 6th pick. You're still getting that 6th. I'll give you my 40th pick in the 2nd round. Still you're going to get a top 30 player here basically on any board out there. So why not go ahead and get it? And right then, Dan, that 2nd pick can be not a Romo Duzé, maybe a Brian Thomas, maybe a Xavier Worth if he drops, maybe a Polk from Washington as well. You're going to get a solid guy at 40 as a wide receiver need.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if I don't see the Giants trading down, but if they trade down, I'd trade with Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, there's going to be a really great talent at 6. I think both tackles could be there, and 2 of the wide receivers are going to be there.
Yep, and that's the greatest thing, Dan. I know, we'll talk about it at the end of the show. We are going to do a live draft next week. A lot of the hosts on Out of the Box Sports Entertainment
because
here.
Neighbors because of Duzier, Harrison, and Neighbors are game changer players. They are difference makers.
And that's the thing too with Malik Neighbors and as Bill and I talked about on College Football Friends. Of course, Marvin Harrison, his stats were enormously, but they weren't totally.
But what Neighbors did is just more impressive because of how much tougher the SEC is. Like Marvin Harrison's running wide open all day, half the season with most of the opponents they face.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Tommy says that comment right there.
Let's go Giants. Let's go Giants.
Keep going. Yeah, and
too
bad he's a Bruins fan.
Oh, is he?
We need new plaques. Neighbors is not as tall as Plaxico Burress. But I think he's as talented or more talented than Burris was.
Yeah, but isn't that Jalen Hyatt, though?
Jalen Hyatt, I see, is more of a speed burner.
Speed burner? Okay.
I think Neighbors is an all-around better player than Hyatt's ever going to be.
And we talked about that word, Dan, possession wide receiver. Everybody needs a possession wide receiver. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but the thing about Neighbors is he could do both.
Mm-hmm.
His possession, and he could do anything on the field. Doozy is the same way. Duzier is more of a threat, I think, but I really like Malik Neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd take Harrison Jr. if he's there.
Yep. Hyatt versus Amani Toomer, basically, right?
That's not the worst comparison. I love the Amani Toomer.
Exactly. Evan says, I really want to push for Mike Evans. Well, shoulda, coulda, woulda, but he stayed in Tampa Bay. You know what I mean?
Well, who knows? Maybe the Giants get a Brian Thomas Jr. at 47.
That's what I mean. I think a wide
would be a great pickup too. But it's tough to pass up on a weapon like that when you have But we had Odell Beckham and didn't win.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Giants' offensive line will be better this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's wide receivers out there that can be from between 30 to 50, 30 to 60 possibly, Dan. Honestly, you got Keon Coleman that might drop mid first, mid second. Keon Coleman, if you want a big guy, a 6'7" wide receiver, go Johnny Wilson from Florida State. Big guy, red zone threat. A lot of drop balls last year, but still, it's a big guy too.
Yeah, but I think I don't see them taking a quarterback if they're staying at 6. I don't think they would spend that pick on McCarthy at 6. I think that's too high for him.
Okay.
The only way would be if a quarterback falls, which I don't think those 3 are going to fall.
Okay.
That's why I think it's going to be most likely it's going to be a wide receiver.
This is my scenario.
My feeling.
Yeah, this is my scenario. I think 6. I think 6, you go Malik Neighbors. I think the pickings there, Malik Neighbors. I think if it all pans well, Dan, and no trades are accepted here, 1 through 6, you guys.
It's a no-brainer, I think.
Yeah, I think Malik Neighbors comes at 6, and I think your 36th pick, to me, honestly,
we don't have. We have 47.
47. I think that pick, honestly, to me, is probably going to be. I hate saying this, Dan, but I think you're going to go Bo Nix.
It could be Bo Nix. Could be another guard.
I think you go Bo Nix.
I don't think Bo Nix would be the worst pick. I know people would hate it, but I can't take him in the first round. But if I'm taking him at 47, I don't think I'd be mad at that, to be honest.
No, I agree.
So we'll see what happens. But like I said, the quarterback is an unknown. How the offensive line is an unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have a good draft, even though they trade one of their picks. But Brian Burns, I think, was worth it.
I agree. All right, well, Dan, we're going to move on to the other team here that we can't stand here. Now, Dan, this team, arguably, I'm just going to say this right here in first and foremost.
One of the other teams I can't stand either.
Oh, so. Yeah, that's why I should have put it that way. But this team I hate more than any other team in the world.
So do I.
Yeah. But, Dan, talk about, rosters 1 to 53 here. This roster is stacked, Dan, of course. Let's just talk about
the Eagles.
Let's just talk about it, Dan. Let's just talk about what the free signings.
Their GM did another great job in free agency. They spent a ton of money and pushed it all down the road. They kicked the can down the road, and they'll have to pay them less like what they did with Devontae Smith recently. So, like every single season, they seem to be able to signing Saquon Barkley. That's an instant upgrade for them at the running back position. Obviously, they lost Kelsey, but
True. But they extended Lane Johnson. I mean, I'm
But
sorry,
they
Landon Dickerson. They extended him as well.
exactly. So, and like I said, I think they'll take more offensive line in the draft, but I think they did a great job with their roster.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a
They
loan
got-
to Saquon Barkley bringing in.
They traded for Kenny Pickett as a backup.
Mm-hmm.
Got Barkley, Paris
Mhm.
Campbell,
Devontae Parker, too. Yeah.
Devontae Smith with that extension.
Mm-hmm. Who's Manzada? 2 tight ends. The one is,
Manzada, I think, is an excellent signing for them.
what is the other
They
one?
like to use their tight ends.
What is the other one? Ukabani or something like that. I forgot his name or something. I'm just trying to remember his name. Ukaban? Albert or something. Yeah.
Akwe Bunam.
Akio
I
Bunam.
think.
Something like that. We'll call him AO. That's what we'll call him. You know, I mean, that's huge right there. I mean, Landon Dickerson got his, a 4-year, $87 million. He brought in Matt Hennessy, offensive
I like
guard.
that signing.
Yep.
C.J. Gardner-Johnson came back.
Yeah, and that was just the offensive side of the ball there, Dan. And talk about the defensive side here. You talk about
having Barkley makes them way more dangerous.
I mean, you lose Swift, you lose Swift, and you bring in Barkley. You know what I mean? Like, wow. Okay.
Now you got to worry about Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. Like, now you got to worry about all three of those guys.
And then the
like,
tight end,
the tight end
Goddard, the tight end too.
Goddard, they are.
Man.
I think the Eagles are going to have an unbelievable season offensively.
I agree, and you know what? I think they're going to be a lot better on defense too this year, Dan. Honestly, I mean, let's talk about it.
Getting C.J. Gardner-Johnson back, I think, is big.
Bryce Huff. Bryce Huff.
Bryce Huff is the other guy.
Yeah.
That other signing they got. I think that's a really good signing for them.
Mm-hmm.
Re-sign Brandon Graham. Sign Matt Hennessy a guard.
And I think you're pretty familiar with Julian Okanaro, right? You're pretty much familiar with him, right?
Yes.
I mean, they signed him. Devin White too. Devin White.
Yep, and Devin White. So I think they did good. But Gardner-Johnson's the big one because they needed help on their back end. And Huff is also a really good signing. I think they did a great job, like always. But that's the way the Eagles do it. They always seem to do a great job. They spent like $400 million in free agency.
But you know what the funny thing is, Dan? They're boosting their roster for the future here by signing players and back into their contract, where other teams are putting it forward, paying upfront money.
You back end it, it's smart. The cap will go up every year. So by the time those years come, it won't be as bad.
Agree.
It'll be more reasonable. So,
Agree.
Like I said, I think they're going to be the best team in the division.
Top to bottom.
Right now,
top to bottom, we have to say this roster is probably definitely the best in the NFL right now, as of right now. Plus the draft.
Absolutely, it's one of the best. They're stacked on both sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Their offense got even better with Barkley.
Agree.
Like,
so
no Kelsey, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, but still, Dan, they're solid. Stoutland University is offensive line coach. He's awesome. Stoutland's awesome. They can put anybody in there, plug and play.
Exactly.
But what is the X factor of this team, Dan? I mean, to me, it's still going to be Jalen Hurts. Yeah,
Jalen Hurts.
Agree.
Him being consistent. I think towards the end of last year, the things didn't go well for them, and he just forced a lot of stuff. I think that's why they just got really tough situations in some games.
Mm-hmm.
And they just really stumbled into the playoffs. But I think it's Jalen Hurts. Gotcha. I think everyone else will be fine. I think the receivers will be fine. I think Barkley's going to have a really good year this year. He'll be behind a better offensive line. It's going to be tough with him and Barkley back there.
I agree. I think so too. I think it's going to be a solid offense here. I think this is probably going to be could be the best show on turf, even though they don't play on turf basically. But I think this is going to be a solid year for the Eagles. I hate saying it. I mean, everybody signed for the future. Everybody signed for the future too. That's the crazy thing about it. They're built for the next.
That's a big thing for them, and then they'll probably draft well as well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, their offensive line is stout. You got Mulata, Dickerson, who was it? Cam Jurgens, and then you like a Tyler Steen. Maybe what is it? Tyler Steen, or I think it's Tyler Steen that they're putting in at left guard.
Well, what's interesting is they don't have a first-round pick.
What's that?
They don't have a first-round pick.
No, they have the 22nd pick. They do.
Oh, okay, I didn't see that. Sorry.
Yeah, they have the 22nd and 50th pick. Yeah, I did write down the draft numbers here.
They have
22 and 50.
22 and 50. Yeah.
2250, and they have no third. They're going to 120 after
Oh
that.
no, they have 22.
Yep, 2250, and then 120.
No, 50.
Mhm.
And then they also have 53.
Oh, they do have the 53. Okay, all right. No, I thought they lost that 53. Honestly.
They might have. It doesn't say it on the site I got up here.
Okay, yeah, I thought they
Usually it
lost the 53.
says, traded to, or it has the team from the team.
Yeah, I think they did lose the 53 in a trade somewhere for that third round pick. I did see. I think they did lose that, but I think it's 2250 and 120 is what I looked at earlier today. They could.
22 is a good spot.
What are you doing 20 here, Dan? I mean, the Eagles are. To me, Dan, you got to go defense side of the ball. I'm going to put a name out there. A lot of people do not like this name, Dan.
Do they need another offensive lineman?
I have them going second round offensive tackle. I do have them going second round offensive line here, but the first round
Chop
pick
Robinson.
No, Dan, don't make them any better. Please stop. Okay, stop making them better. Okay. But my 22nd pick for the Eagles, Bradbury and Slay. Okay, depending on how they play next year, two solid corners when they play. Okay?
Bradbury's also declining.
That's what I mean. But I think you can get away with him one more year. But I think the one name is, Dan, is this guy right here. He's a corner. He's a corner.
Quinton Mitchell, Toledo.
Nope. I think he's going to be gone. I think he's probably going to be gone.
Mitchell's good, man.
That's what I mean. I think he's going to go faster than people project at 22. But the one guy that I like at corner, Cooper DeJean, Iowa. But I think they don't. I don't think they play him at corner. I think they move him to safety. Yes, that's what I think. With CJ Gardner in the back with him to learn, this would be solid, and you can still overcompensate for a Bradbury, even not being what he is. You can compensate with having two safeties like that, Dan. I think that would be huge.
But I would say if Quinton Mitchell was there at 22, I would take him also. He's a really good player.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, I'm just looking at what
I think he'll go before that, but I think back end, I think their front is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But if they take a defensive tackle there, they have defensive tackles.
Yeah.
They have linebackers. They have edge. There's going to be some good players at 22. They're not going to take a weapon.
Yeah, with their 50th pick, Dan, what scares me the most is the guy that I want in my second round or possible. I think he's going to drop Edgerrin Cooper. I think he's going to drop somewhere, but probably between 40 to 50. And if the Eagles
take linebackers too.
That's what I think. I think he possibly could go there because Edgerrin Cooper, I think he's the best linebacker in the country right now. If he falls, man, if they push for him, oh, man. Oh, God. What if Jeremiah Trotter goes back to Philadelphia?
The junior, you mean?
Yeah, junior.
I don't think it'd be a bad pick at 22. Will it go 22? I don't know if it'll go 22 or not.
No, I don't think he's rated 22. No way.
I think he's like second round.
Yeah, possibly 50th pick, maybe, because they don't have that back in the pick we're talking about here, the other pick in the second round. So
the Eagles made sure they did a good job of free agency. Now they have to do some minimal things in the draft, but I think they'll have a solid draft. Yeah,
there's a difference between filling holes, Dan, and filling a whole roster like some teams have to do. They don't have to fill the whole roster; they fill a couple pieces. Trotter Jr. third round to the Giants. What do you think about that, Dan?
I don't think that'd be a bad pick. They still need linebacker depth. They need a safety as well. So we'll see. They might need another quarterback too.
See, the only downfall on Trotter Jr. to me is his size. He's not an upright linebacker, Dan. He's a little bit low on his linebacking scheme.
Yeah.
So that's the only downfall. I love how he plays, but the ACC
I love a fast linebacker.
That's right. He's fast. I mean, he can cover, east and west, north and south. I get that, but his size is a little bit understating to what he could be in the NFL. Honestly, because speed can get you so far in the NFL, Dan, and I don't think that's him. Honestly, you know what I mean?
But I think the Eagles are set up very nice, very nicely. I expected them to have a good free agency. They always do a good job, so they filled some holes, definitely without a doubt, in free agency. So we'll see what they do with the draft, but that's okay if they only have they only have a 22nd pick and they have a couple of picks in the second round. I think they'll be all right. I think they'll do well.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about their offense, Dan. Here's the defense here, real quick. I just pulled their defense up. I wrote some of them down. There was a couple of names that I totally couldn't remember. Milton Williams, the defensive end, or Brandon Graham, of course. Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Bryce Huff. Those are your front four. Those are the two guys,
Jalen Carter and Davis.
Those are your front four, Dan. That's a solid front four right there. Then your linebackers, Nakobe Dean, Devin White, Nolan Smith. That's solid too. Solid as well.
And they're all like Dean was drafted a couple of years ago. Nolan Smith was drafted last year, I think. Mm-hmm. So they're all relatively young. So it's the same thing with that defensive tackle. They're all relatively pretty young.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They are good.
The league, they're all rookie contracts.
Mm-hmm.
bunch
And
of
then
them.
the other thing too is Reed Blankenship. That was the other name that was drawing my mind too. That safety
I
there
thought that was
too.
it's a really good pickup by them. I mean,
Yeah,
I said the Eagles are probably. I mean, I think they'll have a better year than they had last year.
I
I
agree.
mean,
I
they're
think they
set up
will.
really nicely. I hate to say it,
I hate saying it too,
but they're
Dan.
run well.
I hate saying it too. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think they have holes to fill. I think they just have a couple positions to fill this year, and I think they'll
Yeah.
be solid in a draft. I mean, they don't have to hit the home run this year, Dan. They honestly don't. They don't have to do
I
it.
mean, how much better? I mean, their roster's pretty set, so I
Exactly.
think they'll be all right.
Exactly. Well, let's talk about the team that won the division last year, Dan. And I think this team, honestly, is in so hell position where they're at right now that this team is probably going to be in last in the division this year,
You
Dan.
think
Let's talk
that you
about
think
this.
they lost a good amount of
Let's
people.
talk about them. Let's talk about
You know,
that.
they lost some good pieces. Lost their
Dan.
center. Lost one of their best defensive players with Armstrong. Um, who else did they lose? I forget who else they lost. They
Here's
have a
you
new
lost.
tackle.
You lost on your offensive line. You lost Tyron Smith, who gives you
Yep.
9 games a year. That's solid still. You lost Tyler Baez, okay? You
Yep.
lose your starting running back, Tony Pollard, okay?
Yep.
Then you lose Dorrance Armstrong. You
Yep.
lose Jordan Lewis, which we brought back. He's no big guy. But, Dan, you lose everybody. Of course, you brought in Eric Kendricks. I get that. A good defense, linebacker there. I get that. But, Dan, let me ask you something really quick.
Gallup isn't signed, but he's on the way out.
He's on his way out. We're trading him for a bag of stale peanuts.
Jonathan Hankins, I thought was good. Vaderesh retired. Gilmore.
Hankins is huge losing. He's huge losing. A defensive tackle like that.
I liked Jonathan Hankins as a Giant. I liked him. He's a solid tackle.
He's solid. But
They
here's
didn't
my
lose
question:
a lot
Dan.
of people, but they lost key people.
Positions to fill that what we need, and
Yep.
in the draft there are key positions: a left tackle, a center, a running back.
I'm going to say it right now. They're going to take a tackle at 24.
I agree. I have it already written down on the board here. But Dan, what I want to ask you is, you lose Tony Pollard, of course. Okay, he goes to the Titans.
I don't think that's the worst loss. I think you're going to run it back in the draft.
But it's not, Dan. But here's the deal. Okay, Rico Dowdy is your number one. But then you go inside Royce Freeman.
That's
okay,
that's a horrible running back room.
Like, Dan, this is
a
like
horrible running back room.
I think I could sign my JV running back to get more yards than these two put together this year. Honestly, that's how bad these two are.
That's why I see him taking a running back later in the draft. I don't know if it's going to be 24, but they're going to take a running back at some point. They have to.
I agree.
Tackle first.
Yeah, Evan says Lamb holding out is going to be worrying. He's going to play. He's going to get his year contract. He's just going to hold out. He's trying to set the market, which, Dan, I'll reverse my situation here.
Yep.
The Eagles signing Devontae Smith early is smart on their part, because Lamb and Jefferson are going to reset the wide receiver market.
You get them before the market's reset. You're like, all right, let's do this now. Let's give him a guaranteed number he likes, and we'll push. He's going to get $20 million in 2027, but it's under $10 million like the next 3 years. Devontae Smith is getting like $7.5 million this year.
Yeah.
Eight something the next year, and 9 something. I'm like, that is. Then it goes double digits after that.
And his contract barely touches the salary cap against the cap for their numbers.
It's smart.
It's smart, though. It's definitely smart.
Pushing the money 3 or 4 years down the road, most of it.
Yeah.
You give enough guaranteed that, and the cap's going to go way up by then. So it's a very wise move.
Yep.
And again, it's like a master class. I hate to say it.
It is.
He should write a book. Their GM. It's a master class.
Howie Roseman's a genius. Got to give him credit.
And that's something that Shane does also, I've noticed. He's no fucking Lori, though. But he's done that with all the contracts he had, pushed money down the road because your cap's going to go up. So I think it's smart.
We pay everybody up front just to say, okay.
I don't think you should. It's all about the guaranteed money.
Yeah.
You give them enough guaranteed, they'll take the higher salary annual later on years down the road.
Agree.
Because you get guaranteed money, you're a millionaire automatically.
Exactly. Regardless of getting hurt, whatever, that's your money, guaranteed money. So
that's security for your entire life and your children's life and their children.
And that's what players want right now. Yeah, they don't want want the huge contracts. Yeah, they want the huge contracts, but they want the guaranteed money up front. This way,
I think for Barkley, it was more about the guaranteed money. Giants could give him the guaranteed money. But we're talking about the Cowboys, though. It's not good sidetrack.
That's fine. Evan says Dak, Micah, Lamb contracts are going to be crazy, not to mention Diggs. I'm not worried about Diggs. I'm not worried about Lamb. I'm not worried about Micah. Dak, you know what? Just like you have feelings with Saquon Barkley, hey, this is your last year. Bye. Unless you get me to the Super Bowl, then I'll talk about it.
Yeah, if he does something, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Boxer
Ooh.
says, get rid of Dak's 50 million mind down, average salary could be almost Lamb. That's what I mean right there. I mean, that's the thing with Dak.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a year, of course, we call the word auditioning year, Dan. Like you play your performance and what you do.
Good assets if you trade Dak Prescott too.
Well, here's the thing, but the thing is, Dan,
contract.
but who's going to buy that $45 million contract on 1 year? The next year he becomes a free agent, Dan. What if he goes to a team that that needs a quarterback? Whatever. Let's say Minnesota comes in there and says something.
You would have to, if you're the team trading for him, you'd want to redo his entire contract right away.
That's what I mean.
Tell him that.
But see, here's the thing. Here's the thing. You can't trade Dak. Let me tell you why.
No.
He has a no trade clause in his contract.
Yeah, and he's not going to accept that unless he says, you know what? I'm going to get paid anyway. All right, I'm out. He'd have to accept it.
Exactly. You have to like a play and sign contract basically with him.
You're better waiting him out.
That's what I mean. That's why I said.
To be honest,
my buddy brought me a conversation. The mailman brought me a conversation that he's like, Paul, what if the Vikings call Jerry, and said, hey, we'll give that pick if you give us Dak. We'll just switch. We'll give you that 11th or 9th or 11th pick or whatever. We'll give you that. I was like, I don't think the Vikings would do that. Then I thought about this, Dan. The Vikings have paid Kirk Cousins $45 million a year. They paid the quarterbacks every year of Kirk Cousins, right? They're used to paying a quarterback that's not knowing what they're going to give him next year. It made sense to me, but I can't see that happening. I think we're stuck with Dak one more year. And
probably. Like we're stuck with DJ one more year, but he sucks.
Mm-hmm. Troy Craig means he has leverage to sign. No, I get that. That's what I mean. He's not going to go to a team that's not going to be a performance team. If it was the Eagles trade, he's like, oh, I'll go for $40 million. I would do that in a second. But he holds that contract in his hand where he's not going to go to a team that's going to be underperforming. You know what I mean?
Exactly. He would have some say in it, but like I said, you're better off waiting him out and then going in a different direction to quarterback if you want to.
And the craziest thing is, Dan, like next year, if this is what scares me the most being a Cowboys fan, getting off topic here, but Dak is owed $45 million plus, whatever his contract's going to be for the future. He's not worth the money to me. You have Cooper Rush on there making, I think, $3 to $4 million a year as a backup, wins games for you. Not a future starter. But then you have Trey Lance on a rookie contract. But here's the question here, and the craziest thing: this year you're paying Trey Lance, I think it's $3-some million a year, which is fine for a backup.
Backups are not cheap these days.
But here's the deal, Dan. Next year, if we keep Trey Lance, he's $22 million for Trey Lance. For a quarterback that hasn't really thrown a ball in his career, Dan.
He hasn't even started a full season or
that's what I mean. Dallas is in so bad shape, honestly, where you can't even pay your rookies, Dan.
You're going to have to hope that they do something this year in the playoffs. Because you can't keep – it sucks for Cowboys and it sucks for their fans that you're so much better than we are, and we got it done twice. And our team was not as good as either of these Cowboys teams. But we haven't won in a long time. Must be annoying.
Yeah. He says, Evan says, Paul, are you worried that Michael might be on his way out? I don't think so. I think he's going to sign him. He's going to break the bank. They'll bring in the trucks for him. He's a generational player. They're going to sign him. If they do,
they have to resign. They have to.
You have to.
They have no choice.
You have to. I mean, he's the key. You have an offensive guy on the defensive side of the ball. That's him. He's a generational player. He's going to break the bank. He's going to break the bank, of course.
Yep. It's the way it is now.
Box is 713. Is that the 5th year option? I think it is either the 4th or 5th on him because I don't remember the clause of Trey Lance's situation, but I did look it up last week and I did see it. I think
it might be a 5th year option.
I think it is 20 or $22 million.
It was like that for it was more for Jones because
was it okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I remember looking at it. I think it's 20 or 22 million. Don't quote me on the number there, boxes. But I think it's a huge number for a player that's
done nothing.
San Francisco gave up the farm for this guy. Then he got hurt, of course, and then we got him for a 5th round pick. But
you can get 2 good players for that amount of money for a year.
Yep. He says they don't have to take. I know. I mean, I get that, but still, you're going to have one guy on the roster here. Your quarterback Dak is going to take $55 million, and then if you sign Diggs, I mean, what's his name? What's his Trey Lance here? You could. It's bad. Cowboys are in bad shape.
I'm going to bring Trey Lance here for a year, and I'm getting rid of him.
Yeah,
in my opinion,
give him a chance this year. Why not? I mean, you never know. I mean, listen, if the season's bad enough, don't get me wrong, you might see a Trey Lance or a Cooper Rush because
I don't think they're going to be bad, but I think that they have some holes to fill. without a
So
doubt.
the only problem with Trey Lance is he's not going to be on the he's going to be on the roster. He's going to be the third quarterback that dresses for the game. That's not on the. He's a 54th man,
Your
Dan.
emergency
Honestly,
quarterback.
yeah, he's the emergency quarterback. He's not even going to see the field.
Nope.
But Boxes, are you actually a Cowboy fan? Let me know. Let me know if you are.
I'm going to say yes.
I think he is too. Because next Wednesday night we'll be on live. The 215 boys, myself and Dave, talk about all the Cowboys situation there. Isn't that if they were traded 3 years, the option is lowered? I'm not sure. I don't remember the stipulation because once you're traded on your deal, how that worked out, I'm not sure because going from San Francisco, how they did his option years or regardless of the trade, how it worked out. Because I know all we did was give up a 5th round pick. So I don't know how that carried over, honestly. I got to look into that one there. But Dan, okay, Dan, let's talk about the draft real quick. Dallas 24 here, Dan. God, talk about holes, Dan. Where the hell do we go for the Cowboys here?
Offensive line.
You have to. Okay, Dan, which one? Left tackle or center?
Tackle. Take that. If that Oregon State kid's there, take them. If you said Guyton is another tackle. There's also
I like Mims.
I like Mims from
Oklahoma.
Or is it Alabama?
Darius Mims, I think he's Alabama, actually.
The
other guy's from Alabama. The other guys.
You could take the Washington. There's a Washington tackle. I forget his name.
Yeah, to me, this is what I would have done.
Fatu, something like that.
From Oregon State. I don't think he's dropping, though, Dan. That guy from Oregon, I don't think he's dropping. I think he's the 3rd best offensive lineman.
There'll be some really good guards at 24. I don't know if you're going to take a. You think they'll take a defensive player? I think they're maybe.
Yeah, I can't go
edge guys there.
I don't care who.
I'm going to say offensive line.
This is me, Dan. This is what I have here. I want to give you my guys here for the Cowboys here.
Maybe they'll take a wide receiver at 24.
I did see a lot of drafts saying that the Polk guy might be there. Brian Thomas might be there.
There'll be guys there.
But to me, Dan, when you don't have a left tackle, you don't have a center. I don't care who you have. You can have Lamar Jackson back
those
there.
Positions.
I don't care if you have Lamar Jackson, Dan. You ain't going to have time to throw the damn ball.
You got to protect Dak.
So here's my thing. The guys that I'm looking at, Jackson Powers, center. If he's available, I like him at center. That takes away Baez's situation.
He'll be there at 24.
A Mims, a Fanshaw. One of those guys. Best available tackle or center for me.
Yeah, I'm taking tackle. So I'm taking offensive line. Not even thinking about it.
I agree.
To be honest,
I love that.
Taking the best tackle on the board if one of them are there, or Powers Jackson would be a great pick at center.
Well, Dan, where was my Cowboys address this running back situation, Dan?
Later in the 3rd round.
Dan, would you take a flyer on Blake Corum in the 3rd round?
Yes.
Would you
got a lot of miles? I'd rather get Benson from Florida State, but I don't know if he's going to be there.
I do like Benson too. He's a solid.
I would take Benson in the 2nd round. I think he's that good. And for the Cowboys,
they
don't need weapons necessarily. They need a running back.
This is me.
Offensive line.
This is what I'm doing. 1st round, we have picks, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 2 and 6, 2 and 7th. But here's what I'm doing. 1st round, I'm going best available, either left tackle or best center available. If Powers is there,
offensive lineman on the board, take him.
And I'm doing that 1st and 2nd round, Dan. Those are key positions. I'm plugging right away. That's fine with me. 3rd, 4th round, a Blake Corum, a Benson's there. I'm going. If they're gone, that 3rd round, I'm going to go.
Also have that Texas running back.
That's who I'm looking at. Jonathan Brooks.
Yep. There's some good backs.
I love Brooks. I love Brooks.
Comment. Boxer says trade back into the 1st. That's possible also, but 24.
But
I think you're taking the best offensive lineman there.
Yeah, so bring that up here real quick. Trade back in the 1st and get more picks. Lots of 2nd and good 3rds. But to me, that's going to tell me that basically the Dallas Cowboys have said, you know what? Washington Redskins 2.0. We're going to tank the season and just carry out the situation and grow assets for the future. That's what it's telling me.
I think you got to take the best player on the offensive line available at 24.
I think you do too.
It's a major need. It's not a bad place to pick, and there's probably be some good ones still there.
You don't have to try to trade back. I get that. I understand that. But I'm just saying at 22, you have to take the best player position here.
Yeah. Well, I'm not trading. If I'm in the 20s, I'm not trading my pick. But if I was like in the top 10, and
I
I'm
possibly
trading to the
would.
mid-teens, I get another pick on top of that, then yes.
Well, I tell you what, Dan. If I was sitting at 4, and the Dallas Cowboys were at 4, and the Arizona Cardinals position, and I have 3 holes on 2 on the offensive line and a running back RB1.
Yep.
I'm fielding calls and saying, you know what, I'll give you your
Give me a
night,
haul
give me
for
that,
this pick.
give me it all. You know what? Hey, we'll work with what we have here. We'll go out and get some. Players are going to get cut, Dan.
But
OTAs
at
are going to happen. They're
24,
going to get cut. I don't think I would, though. Honestly, I don't think I would on that.
I don't know if I would trade down at 24. That's it. But
either.
like I said, they have so many needs. You have to probably get the best player there to fill one of those needs immediately.
And here's the
Or
thing,
at least
too.
you hope so.
Dallas is always going to be hovering around that 500 situation, Dan. If 500 puts you
They'll
around
be above
7,
They'll be
that
above
puts
500.
that puts you at 17th pick, 17th, 18th, regardless of where you pick every year, being at 500.
Yeah.
So to me, you know what? Hey, and you're sitting at 22, having a hell of a season last year, underperformed, but go ahead and take that 22 spot. Use it to what you need here, because this year, this offensive line, Dan, this draft is solid. Just like Box has said, you can get a good guy in the second round, of course.
Oh, absolutely. The offensive line, the depth for offensive line receiver is really high in this draft.
I agree.
A lot of good receivers, lots of good offensive linemen, even ones you haven't really heard of. Like there will be some good offensive linemen there. I think it'd be smart. If a Powers Jackson is there, you have to take him at 24.
You have to.
I think that would be a great pick for them, to be honest.
I agree. Then in the 4th round, let's say, to me, this is what I'm looking at, Dan. Best available offensive lineman, 1st or 2nd round, vice versa there. Yep. Powers or a Mims, whatever happens, whoever falls.
And you can also get a guard, too. If you need a guard, you can get a Hayes. You can get
that's the thing.
Second round, you can go get a guard also. You can just solidify your offensive line if you want.
Well, I mean, guard would be a depth move to me, because Tyler Smith is going to play guard. Tyler Smith can play left tackle or guard. I think they can't.
And who's your other guard?
Other guard is actually TJ Bass, which I don't even care about him. He sucks that bad. So, that's a guard position. But Tyler Smith will move there. So the key position.
But offensive line is one of the key spots. I think they really need to fill a hole the most.
And I mean, I think I can get a running back in the 5th round. I can get an Aldrich Estime in the 4th, late 5th round, early 5th, late 4th or whatever. I can get a running back. I'm not worried about that.
But your offensive line has to be solid first.
Exactly. And because, Rico Dowdle and Royce Freeman is not, and, Deuce Vaughn is not going to cut your RB 1, 2, and 3.
Deuce Vaughn is more of a
guy
that
he's a scat back.
You could split cars with somebody.
To me, he's a scat back. I use a scat back on my team where I want to get downfield, get in open space between tackles.
I think getting a Betts would be a great pick because he's a physical, fast runner. He's solid.
That's what I mean about Aldrich Estime too. He's a solid, downfield runner in the middle. Don't be like the Giants and take 15 years to rebuild. I'm thinking like 3 to 5, honestly, Ev. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cowboys. What is your 1st round pick for me, Dan? Best offensive line?
Yep. Tackle or center or Powers Jackson sounds like a really good pick at 24 to me.
I agree.
And realistically, you could be there at 24. Centers don't go that high.
No, I think a lot of people, they overlook centers, taking them too high. But I think in this situation,
we got John Michael Schmitz like at 47 or something, 30, like in the 2nd round.
Yeah, but it's a different situation though. Dan, the Cowboys need to address. They need to address this center position. They need to.
They
address
have no choice now.
Yeah, exactly. The word is, it's like you said. They had no choice, so I think they have to do it. Honestly,
Yeah.
Listen, that box is. Thank you for bringing it up. I did want to talk about this. Dallas has $3.5 million right now on the salary cap money to sign all players that they're drafting. Draft picks from round 1 to 7.
Good thing they don't have a top 10 pick, otherwise they would be able to sign them.
But Dan, it's
still though.
It's $8 to $10 million to sign your first round.
I'm telling you, they're going to have to restructure something or do something else.
But Dan, Dak is not going to resign. He's a diva who says he can't.
No, they're going to have to restructure someone else, pick someone and restructure. They're going to have no choice. Otherwise, what are they going to do?
Yeah, they're so bad, Dan. They're eating Michael Gallup's contract, Dan, and nobody even picked him up.
And they're
sucks. Eating it, and they're eating this contract. You know what I mean? Yep. That's how bad it is. I mean, that
contract is probably your rookie salary.
That's $11 million on the cap this year. I think Gallup was, because he signed that like $80 million 4-year $1 million deal, whatever bullshit deal. Yeah, yep. Let's see. Evan says, by this way, the safety would be an option. The Iowa safety, that is Cooper DeJean.
Yes.
That's who I think the Eagles actually take, Evan. Honestly, I think they do it. I think he's actually a corner, but I think they move him to safety.
Yeah, Cooper DeJean is a
Playing with
solid
Bradbury
player.
and Slay and Gardner as well. I think that would be solid for them. They don't have to put him in
Oh,
ski
to
position.
Miami safety, Kitchens or something like that, I think is his
Kitchens, yeah.
name.
Mhm. Yep. He's bigger. He's a little bit bigger safety
Yep.
too. Yep. Boxer says trade down. It does. Don't get me wrong, Boxer. I agree
Depending
with
on how
you
the
too.
draft falls, yes. If a couple of those offensive tackles aren't there,
Sure.
if it makes sense and a player that you want is there and it'll fill a hole, then yes.
But if you
But I
trade
want to see how
down,
the draft goes in front of me
yeah, it's going to
first.
fall how it's going to pan down. The draft board's going to come down and see who's best available.
It
If
would
a
be
guy's
close
there,
to when they get to their pick if they're
yeah,
going
if
to trade
Jackson
it.
Powers is there, if 20 goes along, 21 goes along, and Jackson Powers is there, I'm not trading down. I got to go get Powers. I have to go get him.
But
If
if
a
he's
Mims is
not
there,
there, you might.
if a Mims is there, I'm going to go get a Mims. A key position like that, I got to get. But if you do trade down and gain assets for next year, I understand that.
It's
But
not the worst thing either.
But the one thing too is, trading down one round is not going to save you that, $3 to $4 million. It's going to be basically the same, cap space situation to pay your rookies. But
Exactly. That's the problem.
That's what bothers me the most with the Cowboys draft this year. If one couple of guys there is Jabbar there, we'll get him. I mean, yeah, that's the thing. You just got to let everything pan down for the draft here. But Dan, listen, real quick before we get out of here, we got a couple minutes here. Let's do some sponsors really quick, Dan.
Sure.
Before we get out of here, of course, we got to have some sponsors, Dan. Dan, how about you talk about this beautiful one here?
Monkey Cold Coffee, evolution of flavor infused coffee. Use the promo code OOTBSports at the checkout, monkeycoldcoffee.com. Get 10% off your order. Man, I could use a cup of coffee right now. I'm tired.
Mm-hmm.
They have new flavors all the time. Their newest flavor, honey agave. They also have barrel-aged honey if you want to put it in your coffee as well. But join the evolution of flavor infused coffee. Use the promo code OOTBSports at the checkout. Get 10% off your order at monkeycoldcoffee.com.
Also, guys, if you need legal advice out there, please give my man a call. Jason Fine, Attorney Big Al, 1-800-HURT-123 for all your legal needs out there. He'll take care of you. Just mention OTBS Sports on the phone call there. We'll take care of you. No recovery, no fee, guaranteed. Not 50%, not 45, not even 40, not even 35, 33.3%. No recovery, no fee. Please reach out to my man, Jason Fine, Attorney Big Al, 1-800-HURT-123. You call that number. You might even get me on the phone as I am one of the office managers for Jason working from home. So please make sure you reach out to him, of course, 1-800-HURT-123 for all your legal needs. And make sure you mention OOTB Sports or Out of the Box Sports Entertainment for your huge guaranteed discount if we take your fee. No recovery, no fee. So then we got a couple last comments here. Let's read these comments real quick. And it is going to be Evan. And Evan says, trade down and get Corum or best offensive lineman. Corum is not a reach to me. He's a guy that falls to me. I got to go offensive line.
Got a lot of miles on him, man.
That's what I mean.
He's still a damn good player, though.
He is, but Dan, here's the thing, Dan. If you go let's say if you get Corum in the second round, you don't have an offensive line to run in front of him, Dan. You don't have it with the Cowboys. It doesn't make sense to me, If
they're going to tackle somehow at 24, then maybe.
Paul is the best private in the business. Thank you, Evan. I do my job very well. You know what I mean? So make sure you reach out to us. 1-800-HURT-123.
Well, hopefully the Cowboys didn't miss their window.
Well, I wish they had.
We'll see.
I
hope so. But
well, you know what? If they do, I can always call 1-800-123 for my letdown because I do live in the Pittsburgh area. So hey, why not?
We have no window yet. We have to cut a hole in a brick wall with a sledgehammer to even get a peek of a window. I'm like, all right, I can see some light at the end of the tunnel. Some.
The crazy thing is that it's been 27 years now for me being a Cowboys fan. Of course, longer than that, but 27 years since
I can't believe they haven't done anything in that long.
But here's the thing, Dan.
We won 2 titles in that time.
We always say, Dan, great roster, elite roster, but that don't mean shit, Dan. We know that, man. You know that.
Of course it doesn't.
Doesn't mean a damn thing.
It's not about your roster. It's how you're playing. Are you playing consistent? Who are the matchups? Are you a clutch player? Are you not? Think about the Cowboys. They got blown the F out.
Big time.
And that's worse. We lost, but I knew we were going to lose. But we didn't get blown out. We didn't even get blown out like that by the Eagles a year prior.
Dan, we were a 5-point favorite at home in the first round there, and you get beat by a wild card team, a rookie quarterback.
Unbelievable. They just went off on you.
21 points in the first 10 minutes, Dan. That's how fast you're down. You know what I mean?
I don't think the Cowboys are built to come back like that.
And you know what? The funny thing is, a lot of people argue with me, like, "Oh, look at Dak's numbers in that game." I'm like, "They're charity yards. Charity.
Well,
look at
half
the first
of them
3 quarters."
Garbage
That's what
time.
I mean. He had 300.
The other team knows
yards.
that the team's over. You just got to keep things in front of you. And you knew there was just not enough time left to come back in that game.
Exactly.
It wasn't feasible.
Well, Dan, before we get out of here, how about we talk about one last thing real quick? Let's rate these teams for next year's. I know the draft hasn't happened yet. Based on what we have on these teams, free agency, losing the signees, whatever. Let's rate these teams. Let's start with number 4 in the division for next year, Dan. This is kind of weird here doing this, but
it's going to be us
it's
or
hard.
Washington.
Wow. What?
I'm going to say.
Wow. Okay.
I'm going to say Washington, but not by much. Even though I think they'll have a good year, but they're going to have a rookie quarterback.
Wow. All right, so you got Washington at 4, huh?
That's tough. We could be 4 easily, though. We could be last easily. But how much worse could it get for the Giants, like, for real? All right. Their defense, the Giants' defense is not going to be bad. I don't think their pass rush is not going to be bad. Their offensive line should be a little better, but they have uncertainty at the quarterback position. The same with Washington. I think I'm going to have to pick my team last.
Really?
To be honest, yeah.
Really? Wow.
But it's close between both of them.
The one thing, Dan, I can tell you, man, they can't ever call us homers on this network here because we're keeping it real right now, 100%, man.
I have to be realistic. I would think the Giants would have a better season, but I don't know how their offensive line is going to be. I know they'll have consistency in some positions, but I don't think it's going to be like it was last year, though, at the start.
Okay, so you got the Giants at 4.
That's a really tough question to ask me.
It is.
Well, the Giants aren't first or second.
But Dan, we've done this with every division, so we got to carry it on, Dan. I think
both of them will be under 500 if the Giants can fix their offense.
But you got to give me that. You got to give me that. You got to give me the bottom dwellers, Dan. Who's going to be the bottom dwellers?
I'm going to say the Giants right now.
Wow. You know what, Dan? I'm going to make this fast and simple. I think the Giants are the 4th in the division next year.
Yeah,
I think so.
But that's looking at it now. There are teams that have different seasons.
True.
I think they'll be a little bit better, but I still think they'll be last in the division or close to it.
The way I look at it with the Giants here, injuries played them big time last year, of course, having 3 quarterbacks.
Thomas can't stay healthy.
Huge.
If Jones goes down, they're screwed. Their offensive line, you really don't know what you're going to get from their offensive line. I think Burns, Thibodeau, and Dexter Lawrence and Okereke are all going to have great seasons.
Sure.
They're all going to be, all those guys are going to be good.
My thing is your defense is going to be solid. I think it's going to be an upgrade from last year, honestly. The offensive line's still going to be like a little mismatch.
Different defensive coordinator learning a new scheme, but it's all about how their offense does. If their offense is consistent, it'll change things. But you can't say it's going to be consistent.
And that's the identity. Who's throwing in the ball? What DJ are going to? Can he stay healthy? Is Singletary going to be the running back and carry rock the tote 25 yards, 25 times a game? Are they
going to be doing something like? Are they going to trade up and draft a quarterback and end up starting him? Are they? Because if Jones plays and gets hurt, he gets $22 million more.
Yeah.
As well. So they're on the hook for a little bit. So some people are like, oh, they're not going to let him play, but he's going to be fully ready by camp. Jones will be your quarterback.
He will.
The question is, are they going to have a rookie quarterback or not? And is their offensive line going to be better? Those are the two big questions for me. Quarterback position, offensive. So I'm going to say 4th for us.
Okay. All right.
Third for Washington. Because I think Quinn is solid.
Yeah.
I think they'll finish just ahead of us. But they're not going to be 500.
So what record do you have the Giants at since you got them below 500? How bad under 500?
I'm going to say 7-10.
Damn, really? 7-10.
They won 5 games.
2 games, I guess. You can steal 2 games.
They threw a couple of games away last year.
You did. You definitely did, yeah.
I think Washington could go 8-9.
Wow. All right. So you got your 7-10. You got Washington 8-9 being 3rd. Okay, I'll give you my 3rd here. This may surprise you, Dan. I think it's the Cowboys.
It might be.
I think it's the Cowboys. The problem is the defense is going to be good for me next year, but that offense, I don't know what the hell this offense is, Dan.
You don't know what your run game's going to be and how your offensive line's going to do.
And I don't understand it right
weapons,
now.
But how are those 2 things going to be for them?
Yep. But I think you guys are going to go 7-10. I can agree with that one. I think we're going to hover right around 500. I'm going to go either 8-9 or 9-8 next year for us being a 3rd place. And then I'll go 2. I think the Commanders go 2nd place. I do think they go over 500. I think they actually go 9-8. I do. I believe in Dan Quinn. Dan, the thing is, it's the first year. There's no book on who the quarterback they have, Dan. Look at all these quarterbacks that came in.
Exactly.
Their first year, it's the value of the unknown, Dan. When you have another
But
quarterback,
they got weapons. They
right?
got defensive pieces. They have a defensive-minded coach. He's a much better than Rivera.
I love
The
Kingsbury's
question is,
LLC. Yeah.
and who's the quarterback going to be, and how's he going to do?
I mean, listen. I mean, you're there. If you take the quarterback, if he pans out, Dan, the future's bright because you could, just like you said, that 3 to 5 year window in your first year. There's no game film on the Dan Quinn. The only thing offensively that you have is the DC Dan Quinn. Of course, it's going to be the DC, but you have, the Atlanta Falcons, Dan Quinn. You don't have game film of him being the head coach in Washington with a new quarterback. So I think they go 9-8 next year, Dan, second place.
I think they'll be close to 500. I can't say how great they're going to be, but I could see them having a better season because they have more stability in new ownership. I'm just interested to see who their quarterback's going to be.
Mm-hmm. So you have the Cowboys in second place. Where do you got them at? What record do you have them?
10-7.
Wow. And I guarantee that's going to be a first-round exit.
Even if first-round exit, even if they were 17-0.
Thanks, Dan.
Let's be honest.
Hey, I didn't argue with that one, Dan. I did not argue with that one.
I mean, really, if they went 17-0, they probably still got knocked out in the first round. I know they're talented, but I could just see that happening.
Hey, no, boxes at LOL. Hey, no,
it would make sense. That's the Cowboys the past 27 years.
No disagreement, Dan. I can't argue with that one, brother. I cannot argue with that one. 17-0, first round bye, getting there first round. I don't care who you're playing a wild card. If they do wild card gets in there, sorry.
I don't think the Cowboys will be third because I think they're too talented. I know they lost some offensive line. I just think they got too much talent. They're more talented than Washington and Giants are. So I think that will mean they're just a little bit better.
But Dan, there's a difference between, I coach up here.
In the regular season.
But there's a difference between, earning the respect of your locker room. I mean, what locker room respects Mike McCarthy? The players played for Dan Quinn, Dan, you know what I mean? They played for him.
I agree. I think Mike McCarthy's all right, but I think the Cowboys also have had a lot of talent.
They have talent. They've had talent,
not
past and present.
Hides a little bit. You'll win a lot of regular season games when push comes to shove. You don't win those tough games. Or you get blown out or something. I don't know.
It could swing with me because we know our potential our regular season opponents. We know them. But to me, once the schedule comes out, I could give a couple games here and there because sometimes Dallas plays that, 3 games in 13 days during the Thanksgiving Day weekend.
Yep.
That comes down to who we play. If you play the Eagles one week and then you go to another team, it's totally different based on, who your matchups are, physical game versus whatever. But I do have Washington going at around 9-8. But let's talk about the Eagles here. I think clearly top to bottom, the cream of the crop of our division, probably the NFC most likely, and maybe the NFL. I don't know right now. I think
they'll go like 13-4.
13-4. Okay. I got them going. I got them going.
The best team in the division, I think.
I agree. I got them going 13-4 as well. It all comes down to Jalen Hurts, of course, but
at minimum.
Yeah, at minimum, exactly. I mean, God, 13-4. We're talking minimum. That's crazy.
Unless they run the teams that are just better, and then it just goes that way. But I see them winning 13 games at least.
Yeah, I don't see a downfall this year going 10-1 and dropping to a wild card. I don't see that happening this year, losing 5 out of the last 6.
I think their defense will be better this year, and I think their running game will be better also.
I agree.
Think their offense will be better than it was last year with Barkley.
And, I mean, top to bottom, they're stacked on both sides of the ball here, honestly. So I think there's going to be 13-4.
But they have all those young guys, too.
And they're young.
Defense is a little young, but that's okay.
And, when
I hate to say that.
I know, and through the draft sitting at 22, they don't have to get the best player available. They can go to a position where they want the most, and they can, if it's not there, you know what, we have a team. We can drop back, maybe, gain a couple assets here for the future, because that's what Howie does. He gains those assets.
Yeah, they always have a lot of picks, but they can get a starter probably at 22 if they want to.
Agree. Well, Dan, you know what? We went through every division here on the NFL Weekly Football Talk. This is the last division we talked about, and we actually did it pretty damn good, being a Giants fan and a Cowboys fan. We narrowed it down. Next week, Dan, we don't have a team to talk about, but you know what's going on next Thursday night, Dan?
We're doing an NFL draft stream. I'm not doing the second round, though.
No, I am not doing the second round,
and it was forever. But we're going to be doing out of the box sports draft stream. Starting 7:30.
Yeah, we're going to start at 7:30 next week. So
7:30. So just watching the draft, evaluating the picks and stuff like that. So come join us next Thursday. I wish I wish round 1 and 2 were on day 1, but there's nothing I can do about it, but that's okay.
And Dan, you know what? I'm going to do something a little bit different this year. We have 44 and 50 live viewers watching us right now, total live viewers right now. We have 44 on Out of the Box Sports Twitter account. Do you still call it X or Twitter, Dan? I call it Twitter still.
I still call it Twitter.
Okay. On the X or Twitter out there, we have 44 live viewers out there.
X is weird.
Yep. So here's the thing. If you're watching us on Twitter right now, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to go to the Out of the Box Sports channel. If you're not already following us, follow us. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to tag Out of the Box Sports Entertainment and put an NFL live draft. And then if you do that, I will send you a link next week and you can hop on the show with us and talk about your team and join us for the NFL live draft next week. So make sure you do that. Subscribe to us, follow us. Also, hashtag Out of the Box Sports Entertainment on Twitter. And then I'll send you a link next week and you can hop onto the show with us live next Thursday night, 7:30 p.m. And Dan, you're damn right. I am not doing a second round because that son of a bitch was 5 hours last year.
Yeah, it's so long. You don't realize when you're on stream, you realize it's much longer. Like, yes. And I was like, I didn't really care until my team jumps up.
Exactly.
And I'm saying everything else. I'm like, whatever.
It's one of those things. Like, okay, we usually sit between 20 and 25 for my Cowboys. Of course, the last couple of years, you've been a little bit closer than I am to the front. Steve's sitting at 2. He's happy as hell at number 2. You're sitting at 6. You guys are cool. But do you lose interest in the draft at all, Dan? After you pick at 6, it's like, oh, I got to wait till 22 for the Eagles. Oh,
yeah,
26
typically, if I'm not doing a stream, I look at analyze it. And I'm like, all right, when's my team pick? Oh, my team's not picking until 47 tomorrow.
I know.
Whatever.
Well, how do you think
I'll look it up later.
How do you think you would feel if you were Cleveland, didn't have a first-round pick for a while, Dan? Or remember the Rams didn't have a pick for 2 years their first round. Remember with that trade what they had there? But it's crazy.
A $219 million contract guaranteed fully.
That's crazy.
Oh, what the hell is wrong with them?
Exactly. Well, Dan, listen, it's been a pleasure doing this. Of course, Dan and I usually do on Thursday nights at 6 p.m. We'll continue it this year, of course, right before Thursday Night Football. We do an NFL weekly pick'em show. And then I think this year we're going head-to-head and we're doing point spreads this year? Or are we going to do straight ups?
I'll do the spread.
All right, this year we're going to change it up. We're going to go point spread, of course. We'll do that every Thursday night at 6 p.m. So next week, guys, please check us out, of course. And like I said, hey, if you're on Twitter out there, 44 live viewers on Twitter watch us, hashtag Out of the Box Sports Entertainment. Follow us, subscribe to us, even on YouTube, of course, out there. If you do it, hashtag us. I will send you the link next week so you can live join us and be a co-host with Dan and I, plus all the other great hosts here on Out of the Box Sports Entertainment. So, Dan, you ready to get out of here, man? Because I am tired as hell.
Absolutely.
All right, brother. So my name is Paul Spencer. That, of course, is Dan Connor right there. Guys, we'll be back next Thursday night, 7:30, live NFL draft, round 1 only. And until then, wish you well, and everybody have a great night.
Good night, everybody.